And after a few breaths, we shall begin. So let's all just take a moment. And everybody joining right now, let's center ourselves. Let's open ourselves for the information we are about to experience. Welcome everybody joining. My name is Neil with Portal-to-Ascension, and you are here a part of our Conscious Webinar University, in which we create epic events and webinars throughout the year, about 110 events a year. 80% of them are online, and you are part of this online academy right now. And the other 20% of them are live. And of course, 100% of them are live right now because of COVID. So we're waiting until next year until we go live again, but in person, that is. So today's event is with Laura Eisenhower, and it's on the cosmic realm, from transmuting dark agendas and tapping into the override frequency. And if you have not attended a Portal to Ascension event before, you do have unlimited replay access. To all the people joining right now, please do change your settings in the chat room to all panelists and attendees so that you can communicate with everyone. And at if any point you have a question, go to the Q&A area located right there at the bottom of the Zoom room. Go ahead and type in your question over there, and that is where you can communicate anything that you want to ask. Do not ask it in the chat room because it will probably be overlooked there. So again, in the Q&A area. Again, my name is Neil with Portal to Ascension. I've been doing these events since 2008, 2009. I've been working with Laura Eisenhower for quite some years now. We did the 2 events this year so far, Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure, and also her one before that. I forget the name of it now, but it was a 2-day event. So Laura has been providing a lot of insight on this platform for this whole entire year, and it's been really insightful and helpful to a lot of people. And a little bit about Laura. She is a global alchemist, researcher, medical intuitive astrologist. She is an internationally acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. Laura is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower, and she reveals exopolitical information about his administration that has largely been held in secrecy. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers on health, exopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics, and my favorite topic, galactic history. Laura works to free us from 3D holographic time loop, false archonic systems, and military industrial complex, and exposes hidden agendas so we can take our power back. Feeling a call regarding her mission since she was a child, she has gained incredible insight through her wilderness adventures. Psychic development has been connecting major dots about how to guide us into higher earth energies. That is truly her soul mission. She has a deep understanding of Gaia Sophia and a divine blueprint and how they connect to Venus transit, Earth grids, global alchemy, DNA, and ET races. Her passion is to inspire unity consciousness and bring us to the 0 point unified field, the totality of our divine purpose. So let's go ahead and hand it over to Laura.
Thanks
Pleasure.
everybody for joining. I'm so excited to share this information. So I have a PowerPoint here and I'll share the screen, and I probably won't read everything word for word. I might read a little bit and then kind of go off about something, but the beauty is that you can replay, which means that when you play it back, you can press pause, read the text, but also, yeah, you can also listen to me as well. It's just, there's a lot of information to share today, and I wanted to get as much on the PowerPoint as possible so that I don't really miss anything. But yeah, so bear with me as far as any flaws or challenges that might crop up. It's not been getting the best sleep, just processing so much. I'm sure you guys can relate. It's just been a really, really intense time. All right, but I really appreciate you all being here, and I'm going to get this presentation up. Okay, so just a little bit about where I get my information from. I guess you could say I definitely download a lot. That's why in times like this, it's kind of hard to sleep. Just a lot, constantly coming through. Lots of dot connecting I've been doing for the last 10 years. Researching. It's just been a lifelong mission mixed with, experiences and getting to know whistleblowers and, traveling and just so much stuff. And I'm sure you guys kind of know a bit about me, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but yeah, just gathering data and experiencing things and seeing things firsthand and putting together presentations based on what I feel is as close to truth as I can get, or I wouldn't share it. So usually it's a common thread that I see in many places, or it's something that has been very well backed up, or something that I've experienced that I'm backing up with maybe somebody else's expert opinion. So I've studied all things like related to mythology, cosmic mythology studies, galactic and medical astrology, cheilontic science, and some of my information and pictures come from Ascension Glossary and Lisa Renee. Her website's energeticsynthesis.com. So it's kind of like woven in a lot, some of this material that I just shared. And yeah, just kind of like some of the dots I'm connecting with that and other, things that I've, come to understand about the Venus transits and about, the mother energy. And I was getting given a lot of information as a child, preparing me for these times, also helping me to stay real centered so I didn't get duped into going off planet. So a lot of this information has been, in my awareness for, quite some time, but it just being able to articulate it is the fun part, putting together these presentations. So I'm going to start off with this. We as humans are undergoing a slow evolution to reassemble DNA, which was damaged and manipulated in many galactic wars, resulting in exploding planets. Cataclysms also impacted our DNA, negative technologies, and genetic modification and implants. So I tend to go into the galactic history before, this particular place in our human history, the galactic wars, Lyran wars, Orion wars, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to kind of start here so that we can just keep things really focused on the here and now. So this is what we're doing. We have been undergoing this slow evolution to reassemble our DNA. We're coming to the end of the Uranus-Pluto square. And that basically was 2007 to 2020. We were dealing with a lot of the wake up and shake up part of it all. And it took us right into the peak 2012 time, the timeline shift, which took place in 2010, which I'll get into a little bit more. But Uranus and Pluto square, a square means friction or challenge. When these two outer planets are in friction with each other, it can be pretty intense. Uranus is a planet of shock and upheaval that leads to great awakening. Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, alchemy, and transformation. And these are outer planets, so we don't have a whole lot of control over them. When we need to kind of snap out of a trance or a funk, or where we're just not living in our truth, Uranus tends to come along and shake up our world. And so the outer societies and the culture that we were born into knows this. So they like to kind of hijack the initiation and sort of step in the way before we complete maybe the awakening process. So like say we are having a nervous breakdown and we go to the doctor instead of just breathe through it and see what's coming through. That's kind of the trap of our society. And same with Pluto, death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. When we go into the death part of it, it can be very, very uncomfortable. And this is what they're leveraging in these times to take advantage of that so that they stunt our growth. And they put us more into the fear of death so that we don't emerge and so we don't transform. So Uranus square Pluto has been shaking things up for quite some time. And we entered a new cycle with the Saturn conjuncting Pluto in the beginning of the year. And Saturn conjunct Pluto, Saturn represents, in this context, the old paradigm. It represents authority, it represents structure, and false authority and controller agendas, right? So that's the dark side of Saturn, the lowest vibration of Saturn. So, if you have a lot of Capricorn or Saturn in your chart, don't think that, oh, Saturn's bad. It's just every planet's got its shadow side. And those shadow aspects are what, the cabal tries to thrust us into or keep us locked into so that we don't move up to the higher octaves. So Saturn conjunct Pluto is definitely the paradigm shift. A conjunction means two planets are next to each other. Pluto being the planet of death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation is showing our shift into new earth energies, higher earth energies. I mean, just the whole process of ascension. So we need to be out with the old and in with the new, and just, so the whole draining of the swamp and everything about the awakening process and a lot of the stuff that's coming up to the surface, all the crimes against humanity that has been exposed, that is part of this, Pluto to create a rebirth. So they want to just trap us in, lodge us in this process as best as they can. And as that fades out, the Saturn-Uranus square fades in though. So the Saturn-Uranus square, I'm going to talk about a little bit more, is what we're going to be experiencing as we move into 2021. And we've already kind of touched upon that energy. So again, a square aspect is conflict and friction. And it's a challenge that we have to overcome. So Saturn conjunct Pluto with the whole sort of letting go of the old paradigm, well, that would mean that we move into liberation, ascension, expansion, a great awakening, the great awakening, right? So Saturn making a square aspect to Uranus means it's holding on to that for dear life. Saturn does not want to let us go. It's kind of gripping us. And so we're dealing with that internal conflict of shifting from the old into the new. But it's not just like us having an issue with it. It's everything that they're throwing at us to make it difficult, with all the psychological operations, all the fear tactics, propaganda, and just the way that the media is the voice piece of the false matrix. It basically is the voice of, the falsities that are part of the artificial timelines, so that we are on an artificial timeline. And that's part of these deeper projects that I'll get into. So back in the 30s, the Uranus-Pluto square coincided with an opposition from Saturn to both Uranus and Pluto. In Cosmos and Psyche, which is a book by Richard Tarnas, this is how they saw this error. Yeah, it is kind of feels like an error sometimes. Widespread social and political turmoil, catalyzing of mass movements, rise of radical political philosophies and parties, intensified labor unrest, student strikes and demonstrations, unleashed mob violence and mass immigrations. So, as history repeats itself, the hope is that we learn from history instead of continually looping. And that's what they want. They want to keep us in this 3D holographic time loop. And that's why in my bio, I refer to wanting to help people break free of that, because as certain patternings repeat themselves, if we don't kind of take things to the next level and learn from our history, it's very easy to get caught and just to keep, repeating. And that's why they want to wipe out our history and they rewrite history, because, if we were really, really in touch with it, we might learn something. We might learn something really good. And we all know that we're born with a bit of amnesia. So we come in, and as they slowly modify the educational system and the societal structure into something completely different than what we were raised being exposed to, it's almost like it never existed. This lost history, it never existed. And so we don't learn from the past. We don't remember what it's all about. And so the danger is that future generations are born into, a worse prison planet than what we've seen. So anyway, there's been an increase in delusionment with governments and state authorities around the world, and a widespread call for reform and social justice, as well as greater awareness of the crimes against humanity and things like satanic ritual abuse. Also, our impact on the environment and awareness of things like geoengineering. So this is just going to continue on with the square aspect with Uranus. Many of the fears astrologers have about the Uranus square Pluto, though, before we entered this new cycle, are based on what happened to the world in the early 1930s, the Great Depression, the political and social upheaval, and the rise of dictators and extremism. So if you look at that date, 1930s, well, just before the Great Depression in 1926, the Zeta Zephyrin began interacting with certain factions of several Earth governments. Several projects by Zeta Draco were intent on destroying Earth grid vibration rate to stop us from evolving or ascending. The Zeta were involved with Atlantis and for a time with the colonization of Mars. So, Keylontics. And so that is just where it's kind of popping up as far as these beings wanting to interact with our governments and do sort of this government takeover, infiltrate governments. But really, it was way back during the Atlantean cataclysm, about 26 to 30,000 years ago. This is when the planetary stargates, the planetary grids, and the ley lines became controlled by the negative ET races. So in 1926 and onwards, this is where it just became more about, all right, shadow government, surface sort of leaders in government, and just this negative alien agenda, and a lot of deals that ended up getting made. So the main groups, and kind of what we're dealing with here is the Orion groups, who are draconian. They became an ally to the Anunnaki resistance, who are a fallen race known as wanderers, and they compromised their DNA to maintain control. In a lot of past presentations, I've talked about that, how the 10-strand DNA is draconian. And if you look at certain tree of life pictures that they have out there, you'll see 10 spheres and it's supposed to be 12. So this is part of how they manipulate or mess with sacred geometry and just, different, templates. They are Syrian reptilian hybrids, and they organize themselves into what is known as the intruder races of current times. And these beings are who orchestrate the New World Order and the highest factions of the Illuminati plan for Earth takeover. You're not going to be too loud, right? So I'm just going to kind of touch upon, all right, so 1926, that's kind of when it began. Most people always think, oh, it's just Eisenhower. Eisenhower made a deal with the Greys. It's like, no. This goes way back before him. Aleister Crowley, Winston Churchill, and Hitler, their connection is what established the Grey Alien agreements with the government. And the Guardian groups that Lisa Renee is connected to told, like, what came through is that Churchill actually met the aliens while he was prime minister, and the beginning of the technology trade that led to the human experiments such as mind control through psychotronics and time travel. So Churchill and UK were wanting it for world domination. Churchill did not have racial sympathies and had even less compassion for the general masses. It was during his influence that he was one of the men that allowed 5,000 or so children to be abducted from poor areas and gave the Greys the right to genetic testing of the population. According to the Guardians, when they took something like 10 times that amount, they knew that they were in over their head and that they lost control. And they lost control of what they led the world population into, basically. So when you're dealing with like a negative alien agenda and they have their human sort of hosts or those particular leaders that they're working with, they really don't, I mean, they might promise them fame or wealth, or, you're going to be given, these technologies and you'll be the, the group that doesn't see a demise in the later stages of, the timeline. I mean, some sort of promise was made to make it look, like a good idea, but very often those kind of agreements are broken. They don't really care about the leaders. They just really want to install the AI to the point where the leaders don't even matter anymore. So these treaties have to do with bartering exchanges of planetary goods, natural resources, elements and compounds, and materials that can be taken off planet. That included supplying numbers of human adults and children that the government agreed to barter exchanges for abduction, work camps, sexual slavery, forced breeding, genetic experimentation, genetic augmentation, and secret space programs. In exchange for abducting human beings, these megalomaniac government leaders would be given access to extremely advanced off-planet or alien technologies, spacecraft blueprints, militarized weaponry, and zero-point power source technology, and so forth. So many whistleblowers said that Roosevelt made a treaty with the Greys, but not everyone's in agreement to this. The technology exchanges would have been different, though, but it was mainly these three. And anybody, can check that out. Lisa Renee, and she's one of the few that has brought that kind of information in. And when I was researching stuff about Eisenhower and the Greys, I knew there was much more to the story, and I just never stopped researching. And then I came across this information. Then I was like, oh my gosh, look at the source of it. It's one of my favorite people. So and anybody who knows or knows that, I mean, the frequency is a truth frequency. So, but this presentation is all about taking what resonates, discerning the rest, and yeah, just something to think about. So with all that going on and those deals being made during the Second World War, when we supposedly won the Second World War, it got very clear that actually, we hadn't. But it took a while to really figure that out. But there are so many different things that happened that we won't read in our history books about Admiral Byrd wanting to, take down the Nazis at the Antarctica base, and that wasn't successful. And the flyovers of UFOs that Truman and Eisenhower had to deal with, and they were trying to negotiate with the Nazis and just, still trying to win the war. But we don't hear about that part of it. Or Project Paperclip. And the thing is, back then, Project Paperclip was something that was agreed to, but it wasn't like Truman really understood what exactly he was getting himself into, because they whitewashed the identities of the Nazi doctors and psychologists that were coming in so that he wouldn't know. So one purpose of the operation was to inhibit post-war Germany from redeveloping military research capabilities. One of the fields that Nazi doctors and psychologists have made advances in was that of social and behavioral engineering in humans, also known as mind control. So here, 1947, this infiltration begins, and then here comes just the social engineering, geoengineering, and just major assault, really kind of hiding in plain sight, going through the media, going through the Hollywood entertainment industries, and then of course, the manipulation of our weather, where an event might happen, but more than likely it's not nature fully and completely. It's a superstorm that has been created through the use of these dark technologies. So the OSS, the Office of Strategic Studies, resorted to whitewashing the histories of the Nazis, or sometimes even creating entirely new identities, which made it easy for them to spread their influence in America. 1946, President Truman authorized. 1947, a lot of laws got put into place, started to change the position of the presidency. And that's why Eisenhower had such a tough time. It was really hard for him to know who was who, because when you're dealing with a shadow government, it's even hidden from well-intentioned leaders. And compartmentalism makes it really, really difficult, because if there's like a negative alien agenda, it certainly is not going to want to expose itself fully and completely to well-intentioned leaders that could actually maybe turn it around. So, it's just a bunch of scapegoating and setups. And I understand how that is, because they did that to me when they wanted to take me off planet to go to Mars. They presented it as something that I should be like all excited about or feeling special about. And I could see the good intent in some of it, but just like everything else, there's infiltration and trickery, and there's certain risks that just aren't worth it, especially not in a risk as big as the fate of the human race. And I just knew I needed to be here, and that was very clear to me. I was very strong and clear in my mission starting from childhood. It was just like, it consumed me. I didn't really have a normal childhood. It was like I had to live a double life because nobody was going to listen. And it was easier just to be like, yeah, whatever, she's just out there. Anyway, I won't go into that. So it has been said by the whistleblower of M16 that the three-letter organization, CIA, was created almost 2 years after Project Paperclip was approved. And after this, and the American National Security Act of 1947, to handle the massive number of mind control, cloning, and other covert projects that were born from Paperclip. MJ-12 was also created as a group dealing in ET investigations. In 1944, the six-time Socialist Party candidate for president said, "The American people will never knowingly adopt socialism, but under the name of liberalism, they will adopt every fragment of the socialist program until one day America will be a socialist nation without knowing how it happened. I no longer need to run as a presidential candidate for the Socialist Party. The Democratic Party has adopted our platform." Okay, this is even before Project Paperclip. So, it's like we're being hit from all angles. And then it goes into ET races and a much, much larger picture that, the human race has been kept from for a really long time, when in actual fact, before our DNA was tampered with, we were always interacting with ETs. This is nothing, new. So after this and the Democratic Party, adopting the platform of, a socialist party, then came the 1960s. This is when the new left got its beginning. Saul Alinsky, a friend of Hillary Clinton, stated that to change a society, one had to first infiltrate the major institutions, the school, the media, the churches, the entertainment industries, the labor unions, and the three branches of government. And then they would have the power to implement policies. The Democratic Party of today is far left, and its top levels have been infiltrated by a vast number of socialists and communists. So I can't quite remember the source of this information. So credit to whoever that was. I like to cite my sources, but that's the deal. That's what we're dealing with. And so people still think it's just about voting Republican or Democrat, and it's not. Everything is all about, recognizing that this has been infiltrated and this needs to be taken down. It's no longer the Democratic Party that we all used to know. It's been slowly taken over. And the Republican Party is not even like, really a Republican Party. It's just been taking down the deep state. Trump didn't come in with a political affiliation. In fact, he wanted to run previously, not under a political party. I think the Reformation or something, whatever that title's called. So anyway, with this level of infiltration, we're dealing with social engineering now, starting from way back. Social engineering is a type of mind control that seeks to manipulate people from their own right to privacy into becoming knowledgeable and self-informed, so that the social structure can exploit them with misinformation that is used to take control of their behaviors. Thus, the intended goal of social engineering is to exploit the subconscious and to shift emotional dependence onto those who have accumulated the most wealth and power. This makes them the dominant authorities with full control over allocating all resources available in this world, while creating many different subclasses of marginalized and oppressed people. Also about the weather, controlling the weather and climate by intentionally poisoning and polluting the earth and natural resources through hidden technology and secret military agendas in order to make these resources as scarce as possible while spreading misinformation in the mainstream about environmentalism and climate change. So well-intentioned people that want to save the environment gravitate to the Democratic Party without realizing the technologies behind it, the operations behind it, the psychological operations behind it, and how it's slowly hooking people in with them consenting the whole way through. And that's the hard part. I mean, the biggest deal right now is people waking up. And I mean, we can't put it all on our leaders. It's the humans that are really, deciding. And unfortunately, because this infiltration is in every sector of our society, in the way that we're raised and what we expose our children to, and what the path of seeking accomplishment and reward and certificates and degrees. I mean, we're dealing with like adults, successful people that have worked real hard to get to where they are, absolutely indoctrinated the whole way through. So I'm just going to read a few bits from this. I don't want to read the whole thing. This is from Dan Willis and some of his research as far as, Eisenhower and the Greys. And basically, General Lovekin said that Ike was the one who was sold out, and the infiltrated corporations were the ones that took control of the matter. The 1954 Nordic meeting, in which Gerald Light made it clear that Eisenhower had planned disclosure to the public, when he said, "It is my conviction that he," meaning Ike, "will ignore the terrific conflict between the various authorities and go directly to the people via radio and television to tell them about the meeting with the Nordics." So this witness firmly believed Ike was planning on doing that. That is pretty revealing. By 1954, the Nazis had a pretty good foothold into influencing these military-industrial complex corporations that took control. There's also that other element of Ike, becoming a Knight of Malta, which he had a history of service to the Pope Vatican, according to one paper. And then he realized, wow, I mean, he had a loyalty to sort of a religion or religious upbringing. And that's when he really began to wake up and recognize how connected they are with World War II and with so much that's going on. So, and that's why he, warned us. Even after the Nordics warned them, the 1954 agreement with the Greys went through because it was instead to be kept secret, which was good with the church. And then offering the military-industrial complex technology made that deal happen. So it wasn't Ike that sold us out to the Greys. It appears it was the combined influence of the Vatican and the Nazi infiltration into the corporations who are working together to achieve their mutual goals that declined the deal with the Nordics and accepted the deal with the Greys. So yeah, I mean, as we know, and we see family and loved ones, well-intentioned, not realizing that they're connected to something super dark. And it's just really unfortunate. But the beauty is that a change of heart for the agenda is apparent. If there was any part of him that agreed at all, when he threatened to take over the base at Area 51, once he realized he really didn't have any control, and MJ-12 was like not briefing him or giving him any information, and the secret space programs had been, completely taken over, and he had the role of being a president. He couldn't be a leader and monitor. It just got really messy. And so he consulted with JFK to take down MJ-12 and the CIA operations, and setting the plan in motion with the USMC special section, as well as his farewell address warning of the misplaced powers. So when we look at the USMC special section, this is a part of the military, the positive military that we are pretty certain are, the white hats. And this is how sort of the Eisenhower, Kennedy and, Trump thing, all connects with the plan, trust the plan. And so supposedly it originates with this particular executive order. And USMC special section also connects with something called Project Moonshadow. And supposedly they're working with the benevolent ETs. And Randy Kramer called them like the cancer fighting ETs of the universe, and that they had secret space super soldier programs that were benevolent in order to train soldiers to have extra abilities to be able to combat the super soldiers that were connected to the reptilian agenda that are created that way through trauma-based mind control. So a lot of the people that I've interviewed that have like 200 altars, they all like have some kind of link to the secret space programs or some sort of memory of, you know, being somewhere or beamed to like a certain place or location on the planet, like Antarctica base or something off planet, or being taken off planet. You know, and they're all connected to these elite bloodline families, and that all links to child trafficking and pedophilia and satanic ritual abuse. And this is the dark cabal. This is on a sort of human world stage level, what is carrying out the negative alien agenda, which basically wants us controlled and to use us as a food source because they compromise their DNA. So through all this, Operation Mockingbird came about. It's an alleged large-scale program of the United States Central Intelligence Agency that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate news media for propaganda purposes. It funded student and cultural organizations and magazines as front organizations. So when we look at like Greta, remember good old Greta? I mean, that's just a good example of, in BLM, you know, these organizations and movements and all this kind of stuff. It all connects to Mockingbird and the news media and how they report it, which definitely is steered towards the left, which is no longer a Democratic Party. It's basically the socialist communist agenda that we're literally like right in the crux of, like in a major way. So celebrity cloning and psychological manipulation is real. This extended from Project MKUltra. Then there is Project Monarch, which is ritual trauma-based mind control and abuse that is extended to the children of certain bloodline families and ultimately the future celebrities as children. So when we see some of these governors and some of these celebrities, especially the ones that are supporting the left, you know, these are their little puppets to influence society and culture. Then there's Operation Mockingbird, which I just talked about, which is a long-term manipulation of the public mind through the media via celebrities, news, movies, music, and general entertainment. So when we see kind of like the collapse of this and the exposure of some of this stuff, and, you know, like Isaac Cappy and Corey Feldman and, you know, Fiona Barnett and some of the people that really, really were, you know, in the real deep and darkest of dark trauma, witnessing these, you know, rituals, you know, we've seen that, you know, there's real people coming forward. So through this, the population can be swayed. Through all this manipulation, can be swayed to accept certain ideals, like spiritually degrading and hypersexualizing children. This is because the plan is to create a new world order system where pedophilia is accepted along with sacrifice and ritual abuse. So if we're all locked in our homes and they're feeding us this kind of propaganda and they're, you know, wanting to come around and shoot us up with, you know, vaccines that slowly starts to change who we are as humans, you know, they're going to make that all out in the public, and there's not going to be a whole hell of a lot that we can do. This is why this is the most important election ever. So, you know, obviously I'll go into like, what can we do? And I'll do a card reading before we close just to see where are we right now on the timeline. So anyway, that information comes from Og Tellis, who's an inside operative. So the media has an important role in spinning disinformation and targeting humanity in a mass mind control operation. It is directed psychological and emotional operation used against the public. It intends to incite people into violence and tell you how to think. It is used to derail important facts and cover up the news we need to hear in order to distract us and hook us in. Cosmic and natural law are encoded with our ability to create alchemy and transformation and mass healing, but they constantly seek to fracture us because they thrive on the negative energy. So false flags are literally to throw us into a trauma, a feedback loop, memories of past lives, and, you know, fears that come up. And then all of a sudden, like, we're not in alignment anymore. We're not making any progress. We're linked into the fear, the anxiety, and the electronics, and we're slowly being like pulled into the drama in a way that like manipulates how we should react and respond. So when people are in a survival chakra and they're in desperation and they feel the need to have dependency on things like governments, then they accept the very thing that's going to cause our demise, and they buy into, you know, the storylines. And that's the most dangerous thing, because this is the military industrial complex that Eisenhower was warning us about. It is full scale. We're surrounded by it. But the whole deal is it wants your mind. You don't have to give your mind to it. It's important that we just stay in alignment. So The current culture wars are using aggressive mind control tactics to purposely attack individualism, autonomy, and self-leadership to cultivate a generation of non-critical thinkers who automatically follow collectivism, coercion, and blind obedience to another level of global tyranny. The problem, reaction, solution stage is being set, pushing for another round of cultural Marxism or socialism instigated from the World War era, designed to fulfill the satanic collectivist nightmare of the New World Order. So part of this was inspired by some of the information that Lisa Renee has been writing about and just some of the stuff that I've been researching and just kind of like a hodgepodge of like different sources. So let's look at the aspects. Pluto and Jupiter and Mars and Saturn conjunction, which has been taking turns as far as like the tight conjunctions throughout the year, really does represent the coronavirus crisis, New World Order unfolding, and the paradigm shift. So it's like we see both simultaneously happening. And obviously, you know, we can notice that this is the showdown of forces of the timeline wars. So so it's also the paradigm shift. And so any predictions would rise from the qualities and properties of such a combination, which is wide ranging as far as how the individual experiences it. So I can share aspects, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to respond to these aspects in the same way, because there's different levels to the planetary energies and their vibration and what they represent. So one person can be experiencing Mars square Pluto as something that really is lighting up their passion and their willpower to really, you know, kick some ass and tell some truth and be strong on your mission. Or the Mars square Pluto can have you out on the streets rioting and looting or falling into that or getting hurt by it or responding and reacting and fighting for these false movements and fighting for something that, you know, is just digging you into a deeper hole. This is not a time to be getting locked into this stuff about, you know, our color. We're about to move into disclosure where we're going to be dealing with like our galactic heritage and our cosmic family. That are going to be all different colors and sizes and shapes and you know, it's like, and we're sitting here like in such a primitive mindset, and they just literally like do anything they can to keep us in such a low vibration, literally so that we're trapped in our lower self. And that is why people are so easily controlled. They get them all amped up. They make somebody like Trump look bad. And they get all the environmentalists and all the people that, you know, want to stand for something or maybe do have whatever white guilt, you know, but like leave that, get the heck away from the rest of us then. Have fun with it. You know, have your dark winter. Maybe you can have your own continent, but like whatever. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, multiple challenging aspects marking this transformation process, and we have a choice in how we handle it. I'll say, here's some examples of the planets that we're dealing with. Mars square Pluto, like I mentioned, on and off throughout the year. Venus square Pluto happened in October, so we're kind of over that. But square aspects are challenge and conflict, and Pluto really creates a lot of intensity because, you know, Pluto connects with our core power that is also a part of the regenerative power of nature. But if our ego is not in alignment with the regenerative power of nature, then it's literally in conflict with the transformation process. And its ego is like in battle with, you know, surrendering a little bit and breathing through the transformation. And it's just like, you know, can get very difficult. And that's why we see on social media, just people just snapping at each other, blocking each other. I mean, you almost have to when you know, people are on attack mode. And that's because the ego is fighting this transformation process because of whatever belief systems it's fighting for. So anyway, October 23rd, that already happened, but the sun entered Scorpio, and then the new moon sort of like set the stage for what we're stepping into now and what we're going to continue to step into. And one of the most significant things is what we're about to step into is November 30th, when the sun starts to move through the 13th sign of Ophiuchus. This is really, really good that before December 21st and before January and the inauguration that we get to move through the sign of Ophiuchus, because, you know, people are just getting used to what this frequency is all about, because the sun didn't start to move through Ophiuchus until 2010. So most of our human history, we weren't moving through this alchemical time of the year when things can literally shift form because the ether wasn't available. And I'll be talking about the dark technologies and how that wasn't available, but now it is, right? So that's like a huge indication of this being an ascension window period, with this weaponized media doing everything possible to distract us from integrating these higher, you know, energies. So the nodes, the north and south node, we've got Gemini as the north node, and that has a lot to do with throat chakra, media, communication, and, you know, here we are being masked, and just the symbolism of that as far as the way that the Satanist mentality goes is, yeah, silence them. Because if we didn't have those things, distracting us and trying to block us from that, the truth frequency coming through our mouths would create a massive activation and a deprogramming and a great awakening. So that's what's being targeted. And so we just don't let it, totally get to you. It's really hard. I know people going into town, even just going to Starbucks is like a battle zone of just like, trying to fight for your rights. I had a friend that went into Starbucks and had an altercation, and they were going to call the cops, and she filmed it, and it was kind of humorous, but it was super disturbing. Oh man. So anyway, lots about throat chakra stuff. This is the growth period that we're going through, and also to clean that part of ourselves up. What are we energizing when we talk? What are we standing for when we talk? What frequency is that aligned with? Is it aligned with anxiety, fear, some sort of movement, some sort of label that you're fighting for? Or are you representing yourself as a sovereign being and your authenticity? Is that vibration coming through in that kind of way? Because if it is, it really switches people on. It helps them to feel more grounded, more in their body, more able to be themselves, because energy and frequency is contagious. And that's why mind viruses and social engineering is so successful, because it becomes a movement. And if people like have damage and trauma and they were neglected, they want to feel like they fit in somewhere. And it's very easy to recruit somebody who doesn't have a strong family unit or good partners or relationships or friends. It's so easy to just say, hey, be one of us. And that is all part of the degradation of the family unit and this slow and subtle programming starting from childhood. So we are in a time of needing to deprogram from the Saturn-Moon matrix, which Uranus, the planet Uranus, can help us with. And I'll get into that. But the Saturn-Moon matrix, without getting too like into the terminologies, is basically the patriarchal program. And the patriarchal program is just to keep us out of balance. Doesn't even matter who they're propping up as being more powerful than the other gender. It's just something that is like pushing one over the other. I mean, I think it'd probably be a little bit easier if women were in charge, but even when they were before, there was all sorts of things that didn't make that rulership go very well, because really what we need is union. We need balance. We need harmony. We need people standing in their authenticity. We don't need to try and live up to something. We're constantly being engineered and told how to be, how to think, what it should look like, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man. And none of that matters. The patriarchal program is to create gender identity distortion and confuse people so that, they're raised thinking, well, this is what it means to be a man. And then, the woman's just all timid and in victim consciousness and is just trying to please the man. And it's just been pretty whacked. So the Saturn-Moon matrix has been impacting us for thousands and thousands of years. So when we look at Pluto making a conjunction to Saturn, that begins to clear this Saturn-Moon matrix. And we begin to move into the higher octaves of these celestial bodies. And this is what we're in the midst of right now. So even some scientists have noticed that the rings of Saturn are dissolving, which is an example of what the power of Pluto can have on a planet like that. And so once that gets cleared, Tony Rodriguez once talked about, the moon maybe even exploding or going away. So if you are a Cancer, you have predominance of moon energy, it doesn't mean that you're caught in the Saturn-Moon matrix, because the moon, just like any planet and just like ourselves, acts as a stargate to other higher octaves. The higher octave of the moon actually is Uranus and Neptune. And my phone won't stop making noise. All right. So deprogramming it is an inside job, obviously, right? Where have these programs impacted you? Where are you carrying ancestral patterns? What are you, how are you kind of behaving that might seem to be not of your own? And what are you doing it for? And who are you doing it for? And that's why, people go into the dark night of the soul to begin to deprogram, to begin to like take a good hard look at your behavior patterns, your health, the things that you've signed up for, the quality of your job, the quality of your life. We have to go into those dark night of the soul experiences. And right now we're going in that collective dark night of the soul of who are we as a humanity? Where are we steering this ship? Where do we really want to go? And we have to be incredibly careful. And that's why this, agenda is so, dangerous. People just thought the military industrial complex might just be about, weapons and war. This is about the war on consciousness and the war on humanity and the war on weather. So as we are a part of Mother Earth and Mother Earth and her energy grids and everything about her, we're a replica of. We see that control put upon her, that control is put upon us. So if we can break that program, the Earth will respond to us, and we'll begin to notice that things are changing for the better. And this is why it's critical that people really begin to, snap out of it. And it's really, really difficult when you have friends and family that just absolutely refuse. I don't even know if you could hand them a copy of this, see if they give me the time of day. I don't know, maybe not. It's very easy to just instantly dismiss somebody because what somebody else gossiped. I'm not saying that your friends and family got in any gossip, but this is the low mentality. I mean, you could say, oh, she's really out there, this and that. And they might just say, yeah, never mind, don't want to go there. And they could be missing out. Same thing with a lot of other researchers and really important people out there. It's just kind of, look at what they're doing to Trump. They're annihilating his character so that people don't even give him the time of day. So, it's not about me. It's just, the information coming from others, anybody who stands for helping to liberate the human race. The conditioning is that people turn a different direction. They just don't want anything to do with it. They'll just go by, whatever they heard. And that's part of the Gemini growth period of getting out of that sort of gossip loop and really, beginning to look at things, for yourself. So anyway, the deprogramming comes with the Uranus square Saturn that's happening, and it's going into the year 2021, but it's going to be a bit of a wrestling match. Uranus is a super high vibration, gives us the shock and upheavals. We need to wake up. Saturn is kind of holding on like, no, we're going to control that. And so the shadow side of this aspect would be seeing the New World Order roll out, where Saturn is suppressing our freedoms. But if we can get to the Uranus side of it and not give up or give in at all costs, it'll just be an annoying thing that we have to deal with for a while until we can kick it to the curb. But, these planetary aspects are a part of this process. The Earth and cosmos and these aspects, aren't just some accident or like, oh dear, that's going to take us into this or that. It's all a part of the awakening process. It just depends which side of it all you're on. And that's the thing. And then we got the Mars square Saturn. That's going to go into 2021. And we'll be experiencing that sometime in January. And that's another squared aspect. So anytime Saturn makes a square, it means outer authority or some level of control is creating friction or a block. So if we can find some level of peace with it and do what we can do in our own personal lives and be resourceful and just kind of like breathe through it and handle it, these aspects will eventually move on. So like I said, the presence of the 13th sign of Ophiuchus will be moving through November 30th to December 17th. And I might set up something where, my Cosmic Gaia subscription, I do 4 Zoom events a month. I host different guests to do different meditations or to share their story or whatever. But once November 30th hits, I'm going to put a lot of focus on the energies of Ophiuchus and us really, really bringing these energies in to integrate into our physical body so that we can raise our vibration and be that part of the collective consciousness that is going to push things over in the right direction. And in a lot of ways, we already are there, but I don't like to sit back and just say, oh, we've already won. It'll all work out. They'll figure it out. Everything's fine. No, we all have to stand up and be held accountable. So the Saturn transits Aquarius from 2020 to 2023. Hopes are being raised and visionary ideas and thoughts of human advancement are being discussed, right? So there's going to be versions of it, depending on who the leader is, that feel really good. And then there'll be versions of it that might be, oh, this is for your safety and protection, and you need to be in lockdown, and you need to have this, and you need to have that. And that's just like the inversion of the human advancement that, everybody is feeling and knowing that this is what, we're supposed to be stepping into. The inversion of that's not going to make a whole lot of sense to anybody who's intuitive. But anybody who's not intuitive, that is literally completely, totally taken over by these mind control operations, they're not in touch with that frequency enough to be defending it or guarding it with dear life. I can take a break and drink some water. So our inner knowingness that some sort of ascension should be taking place exists for so many people, but the reality we're experiencing is quite different. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's a slow process. But most of humanity, just needs to support the right leaders and individuals, because this is about the collective consciousness. We are the biggest power, and so they're trying to rein that in and control the thinking of most of the population and have some level of, consent. And I do believe there's enough of us on the planet that like absolutely can see what's happening and don't want it at all. And, these things won't take effect, but it's going to be a bit of a struggle, probably for the next couple of years. So whatever happens, it's going to take work and effort. And that's just the way Saturn is. When we step away from the tyranny and the dark controller aspect of Saturn, and we look at how Saturn works in our own life, it takes a lot of work and effort to get over the trials and tribulations that are being placed upon us. So the higher octave of Saturn is that we finally figure it out and we start to work with Saturn on our own terms. We start to create structures in our lives that support us and our higher awareness and our spiritual energies. And we shift things around. Instead of being told what to do, we tell ourselves, what do we need to do to make our world a better place? In our micro world, especially like health and well-being and, being close to nature, having a structure as far as where your time is spent that works for you so you don't get drained and depleted. So, we really got to take care of things on the micro level so that we are holding a optimal energy and frequency to impact the collective in a really important way and needed way. We have to let go of a whole old paradigm that is ingrained in us after so many incarnations on Earth and a long 26,000 year cycle of amnesia. And so we have to be very patient and supportive and loving of those that are kind of in refusal. But yeah, let's just hope for the best with that. The control over Stargates and Earth grids, dark ritual abuses taking place, and how that has kept us in digression and also 3D, and also the infiltration of our media and most power structures and the programming embedded in our culture, we all need to unhook from. Everybody's got some kind of hook, some way more extreme than others. But, it's just something that we just have to create the intention for and devote ourselves to. I mean, I think a lot of the more starseed sort of issues are, maybe leaning on substances or leaning on sort of vices in order to like handle maybe the stress or anxiety. So, we just got to like optimize, the human temple as best as we can. Everybody's dealing with something. So anyway, back to Saturn and the dark part of Saturn. Saturn's black cube holds a massive tank that acts as a harvesting station for blood sacrifice from human beings in any way imaginable. Our capacity to clear ourselves of false tyrannical authority and not fall for the facades is how we expose crimes against humanity. So the black cube matrix siphons life force from living systems and beings and routes it back into its black hole system. This is the time loop. Dark technologies placed in the Earth grids, implants, and other methods are how this is successful. The different levels of NWO rollout are designed to further compromise us. So we're getting hit with the storyline to get our minds. And then with these other things, it gets our energy, and then it begins to harvest that energy, and it feeds things that are off planet. Because basically we're keeping alive a vampiric fallen angelic race, basically, that require us to stay alive. And so it's a vampiric system. What they've done to the Earth grids and the whole planetary grid network is for it to be digressing humans so that they can take all that energy that we could be stepping into and awakening for themselves. And it's like the most awful theft. But fortunately, a lot of guardian groups and a lot of grid workers and a lot of people and beings and higher benevolent races have been working real hard to create these corrections, including the Venus transits and how that's created a correction. And I always end almost every presentation with the thing about the Venus transits, because we all have to remember what is really operating on our behalf, because we're dealing with the planetary consciousness and the breath of life in a living cosmos with intelligence and benevolent, unconditional love for, the beings upon it. But, in a free will universe, it didn't take very long for it to split into the Antichrist and the Christ groups and beings, service to self, service to others. So anyway, all these different tactics has digressed our evolutionary timeline in the direction of soul harvested louche energy used to power the false creations of the phantom matrix, demonic hierarchies, and artificial timelines. The end goal is to fully enslave the consciousness of Earth and keep us from expanding into the rest of our multidimensional selves. So these aspects really represent freedom or slavery. Saturn and Uranus move out of orb of a square aspect in July 2020, but in November 2020, move back into orb. And during 2021, they form 3 square aspects. And so you can see those dates going all the way to December 24th of 2021. And so if you're on the Saturn side of it, that's the slavery side of it. If you're on the Uranus side of it, that's the freedom side of it. So, we're not going to be able to really help what other people decide to do with these energies and what they impose upon us in society, or how this election thing is going to be handled. I mean, there is a lot of hope and a lot of good things happening behind the scenes to get this voter fraud exposed. I mean, all the evidence is there. So we, the people, have to demand this, because it's us as people, that can turn a blind eye or not, and just watch mainstream media and just accept whatever narrative they're throwing at us. And we cannot do that. And so those that made the mistake of being democratic without realizing the infiltration and the fact that it's hiding socialism and communism need to get on board. And that's why if you think anybody might have an open mind to listen to this, or some of the, the great documentaries that are out there, like I posted on Twitter, the names of them. I can always share them, but these kind of things, people need to watch from really, really credible people and experts. It's that it's not bent on like the politics of it all. That's like old news, that it's about politics. I mean, look at where we are right now. I mean, this is about end times like matters. So anyway, last time Saturn was in Aquarius was the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. Lots of independent movements in countries around the world, including the breakup of former Yugoslavia. Uranus is all about rebellion and revolution, but the Saturn square to Uranus shows what a tight grip these controllers have on us. It must be resolved within us, and we need to understand the importance of the micro-macro connection. So as soon as Saturn entered Aquarius, it began to form a square to Uranus and Taurus. This square won't be exact until February 2021, but it gets close from April to June this year, so that's already passed. This alignment runs until early in 2023 and prepares the way for Pluto, who enters Aquarius just after Saturn leaves. This represents a great tension that arises when we need to break free from something. It is literally energetically like going through a breakup. We're going through a breakup with the old paradigm. People are clinging on to dear life, and they're getting really extreme about what they're, clinging on to. They think they need to break away from like the Trump administration. He's the enemy and he's the bad guy. They think they're fighting for their freedoms right now, or a leader that's going to protect them in the event of, a second wave or this or that. So they're fighting for freedom, but they're not in alignment with truth is the unfortunate thing, because we all want the same things. And so, AI and mind control and social engineering is all based in mimicry, knowing that something organically is going to happen and then coming up with a false version of it to hook people in. And that's what religion does. People that want to be on a spiritual path, that need some sort of guidance, might join a community or a church. Nothing's wrong with that. But when you're up against, some of the hidden aspects that are hiding behind the scenes, then it gets really disturbing. And those kind of traumas are incredibly difficult to recover from, because, we're all very vulnerable. So anyway, this represents a great tension that arises, with the need to break up. It's literally like I said, a breakup. So I feel in the next 3 years, this sort of tension and conflict will be the old order continuing to do all it can to keep us engaged in the script or to take away our rights. Since Saturn, outer authority, is challenging our freedoms, which is Uranus. There are, of course, many ways we can deal with this. Mass protest for one, but it gets dangerous. I mean, you got Antifa and these mobs coming in, but also seeking truth at all costs to override control that is based on theft of our divine birthright. We all have to be information. We all have to be resources of information. We need to do whatever we can on a local level. You might want to create like a gathering or different events in town to appeal to, your neighbors and friends, just like here, maybe you can have a show of, this presentation or some of the documentaries I mentioned. It's like all we can do is really work at the local level. Social media is getting very difficult to express ourselves because of the censorship. So, we got to just, I know this is a really tough time. It's so easy to slip into depression or helplessness or hopelessness, but like we can do way more than we realize. And we got to be careful how we do it. It can't all be about, a politician without it being misunderstood. It has to be about exposing New World Order and crimes against humanity, all this kind of stuff. I don't know. Everybody, you're going to be called to do your own thing. Don't push yourself to do something that really doesn't feel right for you. But every single person has a calling. And if we can create the space to listen to our intuition and our own personal inner truth, it'll tell us what we need to do. it'll guide the way. So there are many ways we can deal with this, like I said. So anyway, for the diamond sun 0-point unified field ether and the purifying energies of the aqua ray to be integrated and awoken within us, we have to contend with this metaphorical bad partner, the old Saturn, and do the work necessary to have the law of structure in our lives accommodate this breakup and this shift. Recognizing, yeah, when we break this harmful relationship, guess what happens? We make room for true love. And true love on a massive scale is our ascension, our connection with the Christ Sophia divine template that we all hold within us, our connection to source energy, our connection and oneness with the earth, and how that's going to change the way we relate to nature and the way animals respond to us. So Mars is a theme because of the Mars square Saturn, the Mars square Pluto. And so Mars is connected to willpower, ego, identity, and the warrior in us. It can also be the part of ourselves that just feels anger and acts impulsively because of the fire and passion it holds. It wants its way and it wants to exert force at times. With Saturn in the mix with some of the Mars square Saturns happening again in January, symptoms can range from discouragement, frustration, feeling blocked, to overwhelm and even fear. Also, a lot of the ascension symptoms people are experiencing are reliving a lot of injuries or illnesses, or just, and that's part of the cleansing process. But the frustration, and discouragement might be, that as much as you're doing the inner work, you feel like it's not taking you anywhere, and that's what they want us to feel, is that discouragement and hopelessness. But just know these aspects aren't gonna, be indefinite. And what we can do is just take that tension and take that frustration and begin to channel it into art, into music, into creating joy, and doing whatever you can to keep the vibration high. So we'll be coming up against obstacles or resistances and feeling like we're being thwarted with these kind of aspects. But this is both personally and globally, because the global climate is affecting all of us. Where we are and where we want to be in the micro macro sense is what many will be processing. It's something we will be continually bumping into, as the Saturn part of it that rules outer authority, rules and limitations, prevents us from being able to easily do what we please. Can't really go out there and do as we please like we used to. So so I think there's going to be a bit of a struggle. I don't know exactly how it's going to look. I don't like to really create predictions, but if this is the case, it could definitely be a long and drawn out thing to need to remove Biden. I mean, it could be the that power struggle of all that. So the humans really need to rise up and not just sit back and watch it on the television and just observe. We are a part of this. Everything is about what we choose to do. And we can't make it about politics. We got to all step away and just look at the larger picture and look at what is at stake. It's hard to know truth from lies and deception. And so the Saturn energy will be creating a strong feeling of constriction in our solar plexus area, where our personal power is disrupted throughout our bodies. It will be important to work with the law of structure that Saturn represents and not let the outer authority or any abuses of power drop our vibration, like I said, to defeat our hopelessness. So if you feel a lot of like stomach issues or constriction, a lot of times for people, the source of that is not knowing who to trust or what to believe. So believe in yourself, believe in the power of, nature and spirit and all the different alignments. This is a cosmic and earthly event. We need to create, the sacred space for ourselves to really let that flow throughout our bodies. This other matrix thing is just an artificial construct that is going to collapse. But as long as we're heavily participating in it and giving our energies to it and getting embroiled in it to the point where it starts to deplete us, we really are delaying the inevitable, and we want to get there quicker than not. So high vibrational foods, earth medicines, and working with sound healing will help us to feel we are flowing with the organic ascension signals. I've got a lot of great products on my website, cosmicgaia.org. If you look under products, there's EMF protection. I've noticed a huge difference. The thing is, it's like we need EMF protection because so much of it is streaming through our electronics, so much distortion and just frequency modulations that can like really create a lot of stress, and it could create a lot of argument in family members, and just like really just a feeling of, fight or flight anxiety. So some are cheaper than or less expensive than others. There's 2 different companies that you can look up on that my website for EMF protection, and a lot of amazing, earth medicines and I'm working really closely with Touchstone Essentials right now. And the zeolites really help, the heavy metals, getting the heavy metals out, and that's hugely important. So I'm just trying to like build like a store with everything that you could possibly need during these times, including my Patriot supplies, which you can stock up on food really easily in the way that it's stored, and it's pretty inexpensive. So anyway, when we invoke our higher self to fully step in, we experience heightened intuition, wisdom, and guidance. So it's important we take the time to set that energy and anchor it into our awareness. This will ground us to organic ascension timeline. So we really just have to be mindful every day. Like first thing when you wake up, set the energy for the day. Work with essential oils, get into your breath, get really, centered, and pay attention to your dreams too, and maybe write them down, because important things are going to be coming through. And what'll be really good about the EMF protection as well is it'll protect your dream space. When you have it near your bed, when you go off into the astral, you're not going to be easily targeted, because they do a lot of crazy stuff in the astral. So anyway, after the planetary dark night of the soul, we either rebirth into a false sense of progress and get pulled further into harmful technologies and see a doubling down of control through technology as we lose even more of our freedom and humanity to algorithms and robotics, AI and transhumanism. Or if we can pay attention to these dangers, Saturn in Aquarius can bring a reality check to these systems and force reform in alignment with humanitarian values. Saturn in Aquarius will build new structures by bringing people together to network and exchange visionary ideas about the future based on humanitarian values. The transition period ends in December and really begins to solidify the timeline that we are on, as Jupiter will be amplifying Saturn. So December 21st is when this conjunction is going to take place. And so I put in parentheses, Saturn in Aquarius, March, it enters, and after its retrograde into Capricorn, returns again in December and conjunct Jupiter in December 21st. That's going to be a really big deal. So a very eventful solstice weekend in December, like I was just mentioning, as the long-awaited Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius occurs on the 21st, followed by Mars conjunct Eris on the 22nd and Mars square Pluto on the 23rd. Eris is an archetype of goddess of strife and conflict. Mars already making a difficult aspect to Pluto is a lot of, conflict. We also have Pallas Athene in the mix, which is the goddess of wisdom. So those that are awake and conscious of these energies will be able to direct this powerful force in the right directions, whereas others that are not connecting into the wisdom because they're too absorbed into the news and the false media, it could get pretty crazy. So say there's a huge breakthrough and they do realize Trump won by a landslide. Well, we got a lot of aspects for the rest of the year that just show, a lot of dangerous kind of violent, behaviors. So, and a lot of them have been brought in, and they've been recruited into these, groups, and they've been groomed and trained to play this role right now. And a lot of the people that have a lot of altars also have particular altars that are groomed for this time. And anyway, so this will help, this energy though, for those of us that are conscious, this will help with burning up and moving out any blocks. But if we aren't conscious, it's highly volatile and violent, like I said. Once we do this, we can begin to experience the higher Saturn. So the higher Saturn, self-mastery, teacher, overcoming trials and tribulations, and satanic forces. Saturn's job is ultimately to strengthen us, similar to how resistance weight training builds muscle. We are in a spiritual boot camp here, and with the end goal of awakening to our true potential, understanding what is dormant and targeted, and rescuing those things like our junk DNA, which isn't junk, and our galactic chakras, which are energy centers we need to open. So everything that we could possibly need is within us. So if we got junk DNA and it's not junk, then we need to start understanding, well, what is it then? Well, we could talk about the nucleic acids. We can get into the scientific terminology, or we can understand it on a more archetypal level and based in elements, earth, air, fire, water, ether. And I'm going to get into that. And it'll make it much easier to consciously switch these dormant strands on when it's not just like a bunch of, scientific terms. It's actually something that we can relate to because we're experiencing it. Nature is an outer reflection of our soul, of our DNA, of everything. So anyway, and the galactic chakras are going to begin to help us to make, important connections with our higher self, our galactic family, and anything, out there, and, that is, really just with us, wanting to see us overcome this most monumental time in human history, which is, basically the end of the cabal and the deep state. And it's monumental because it's now exposed for all to see, to consciously remove themselves from, whereas before it was hiding. And all these different crimes against humanity, we weren't able to see. We did see some, but not all of it. We didn't see the architects behind the false flags of war, things like 9/11, all these different things that are designed to just, crush us. And this has been going on for a super long time. Saturn's known as the dominator and controller as far as its lower energies in the matrix. And the limitations, rules, and responsibilities is more of how it represents itself in the human sphere. So some limitations, rules, and responsibilities are good. But when there are limitations that are suppressive and oppressive and controlling to the point where it's keeping us from thriving, then those limitations and rules aren't any good. So when we work with Saturn, we want limitations and rules that work for us. Maybe it's going to bed at a certain time so we get a good night's sleep. Maybe it's the limitation of not overeating or drinking. Or maybe it's a limitation of, instead of like doing something super fun, you might just go out and get some exercise and get some structure in your life to be a healthy person. There's all sorts of limitations and rules that can really work. And a lot of things that we're responsible to that actually bring us a lot of love and joy. But when it's turned and inverted into, limitations that control us and block us, this is what needs to be knocked out of the way. Lockdowns, wearing masks, the possibility of mandatory vaccines. We have so much to fight for right now. We're talking about future generations. And the thing is, it's like we need to earn this by not being complacent. So the highest level of Saturn is teacher master. So through all that we're going through, isn't this where we can like pop out at the end? We can become teachers. We can have some level of self-mastery. And in doing that, we're able to help others. And when they see that there's way more to us than just maybe, the election or a particular political party, and they know that, we're representing something of a much larger order and bigger picture, our words might be more effective, hopefully. I know sometimes I've probably lost a lot of people, because I've just been very loud about this administration only because of how critical it is. But otherwise, I go back into my sovereign zone. I don't really engage in the political realm because right now it's not about politics. So if it's not about politics, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do all I can. So Saturn also relates to the devil card in the tarot. And when it's upright, it represents temptation, unhealthy relationships, enslavement, materialism, bondage, fear, and feeling trapped. When it's reversed, it means a person is getting a grip over those forces. And it represents freedom from restraints, breaking from addictions, and like the divorce from any kind of bondage, any kind of attachment that isn't healthy. That represents sort of like the devil, something that like a narcissistic personality, or a partner that's abusive. And this is the kind of relationship that the old paradigm, the cabal, has with its humans. It's abusive, it's narcissistic, it's selfish, it's greedy, it steals, it lies, it does unspeakable crimes. And we're like in a relationship with it. So we need to get a divorce. We need to get a grip over Saturn. And every single one of us has work to do on that. And the card that follows the devil card is actually the Tower. If you look at the order of the archetypes, the Tower knocks down old structures to rebuild new structures. It's very connected to the planet Uranus. So anyway, the Draconian Orion group are also referred to as the Black Suns. Sons of Belial are the other controller group, and they're aligned. They've formed an alliance. They block the Stargates on the planet. The Black Suns have reversed their DNA. It's a reverse 10 DNA strand, and it's running a reversal life current. They have a hierarchical system. Earth-based reptilians appear to be in command over EBE or biological entities known as small grays. And that's exactly what we might end up turning into if we get these kind of vaccinations. But I don't want to put any fear in anybody. Say you did get vaccinated, say something like that happened. People are like, oh, it's not reversible, you can't reverse it. I don't think anything's impossible. So, and I think there's going to be more information about how to undo some of these kind of damages. I can't just imagine that, it's a done deal, especially if like a person did it without realizing. So I just feel that there's great, great power in spirit and anything's, possible. But it seems though, that as humans digressed through the different tactics that they're using, that they did become these beings that needed to abduct to get genetic material to save their dying race. But some have stayed owned and controlled by the Earth-based reptilians and are just, doing, their orders, they're doing their dirty work. So you got two different types of grays. ones that I feel are still very owned by the reptilian agenda, and some that are trying to heal and break free. And they're coming in from different times or different places in the timeline. But these aren't all grays. This is just a certain type. And then, of course, all reptilians aren't negative either. So you're dealing with, just this small concentrated group. But it's very obvious and clear to me that grays, even tall whites, are modified and engineered humanoids, or what might have been, like Nordics even, that have slowly been assimilated into something else. And that's, what the AI is all about. The hive mind assimilating us into AI obviously is going to digress us, and our physical bodies are going to change. So we are at the crossroads right now of like moving in the direction of being, more online with becoming an ascended master instead of, a gray alien. A lot of readings that I've done, people say I used to be a gray, and there are hybridization programs that have been healing, this race. And they're called the Essassani, as you guys know, Bashar probably is one of them. So there is some hope there. And supposedly the Essassani want to reward us or pay us back for us helping them with some of these programs. And so we might see something on a galactic scale intervene in amazing ways. But we want to be very, very discerning and careful. A lot of things can present themselves as being benevolent, and they absolutely aren't, as we all know. And there are technologies that can create a Nordic appearance when it's actually a reptilian. So we want like the real psychic and really tuned in people, on the front lines of this, when contact happens or any kind of disclosure comes out, so that, we know what we're dealing with. I mean, I don't know how it's all going to look. I think people are going to be starting to get prepared for something maybe specific to them. And then we're going to have events that take place on a much bigger level. But anyway, these biological entities known as small grays have very limited levels of they access limited levels of biological immortality through the vampirism and siphoning of other living things, such as the planet Earth. So artificial timelines have been in the works for 26,000 years or so. Positive timelines connect with recognizing our divine blueprint and our true origins. The positive timeline, organic ascension, natural stargates opening, expansion, upgrades of our DNA. This is a stellar activation cycle window period, and it's our opportunity to get fully anchored on this path to avoid future repercussions that come from being immersed in the artificial matrix. Much of the benevolent ET visitations has to do with correcting this, but some are not, and they are part of the negative ET agenda. Anyway, immersed in the artificial matrix is definitely the mainstream media and the entertainment industries. When you're an observer, you can look at these things without getting sucked in and programmed by it. You can observe and you can see the programs. So yeah, catastrophic timeline, that's negative ETs who have been manipulating the human world of affairs for thousands and thousands of years since the Atlantean cataclysm for their own purpose. They compromised their DNA on purpose and manipulated ours. Assimilation into AI through continual traumatic events. And so we're going through these continual traumatic events. And now the trauma is that maybe we don't think it's, the virus is as bad as they all say. We have to suffer the consequences of this level of control, of telling us how we should relate to our own health. Socialism and communism literally takes over us. It's the ultimate form of control and our resources. So the lower the quality of overall energy, the more unstable and disconnected the personal and environmental experience on Earth will become. The higher the quality of overall energy, the more stable and connected the personal and environmental experience on Earth will become. So we want to create real, stable energies of, grounded with nature and the earth and good food and creativity and, good friends and love. And just, that's a stable, high frequency energy. And it's what allows us to ascend. It's an ascending hub. It gives us the accretions that we need to integrate light energy in order to begin to switch on the things that have been dormant. The descending hub, though, is low frequency. It's unstable. It's stressed. It's anxious. It's fearful. And it's got its mind wrapped up into belief systems that aren't in alignment with one's higher self. And so the body suffers. It begins to digress. I mean, then you jab, a needle in the arm, and then that kind of seals the deal. So technologies were put in place thousands of years ago in order to make it very, difficult. For example, the Nephilim reversal grid technology is a massively complicated alien structure that has interfered with true spiritual marriage, or Hyros Gamos as a possibility for human beings on the planet. Nibirian diotic crystal is another negative ET technology control network. This affects the grids and have been placed in sacred sites. Oh, sorry. This is a sacred site such as Stonehenge. So those ley lines are connected to Hierogamic union going all the way to Glastonbury. And so this created a lot of negative energy and a lot of overlay dark grids. There's a huge number of them all over the planet. And they've been, a lot of them have been repaired. But they put them in these locations for a reason, because in doing this to the Earth and the circulated or the energy meridians and grids of the planet, its circulatory system, it directly impacts us. So, you know, and that's the whole idea, because we are a replica of the Earth. So if they're able to manipulate that on the Earth level, then it automatically manipulates us. And so when we come in through birth, through osmosis, we pick up on that. And so we got to, you know, be conscious of that. And that is what the override frequency is. When you're the override frequency, you begin to create corrections. You're a part of the healing process on multiple levels. But, you know, when we look at like Nephilim reversal grid, a lot of that comes through, you know, Hollywood and entertainment and magazines and the social conditioning. But when you become addicted to the bait that is presented in all forms of manipulation and deception, the architecture of this control system hooks into you and takes your vital force. This is what feeds the technologies, and it goes off planet as well. Our free energy has been used as a weapon against us. Different false archetypes are played out, and they are rewarded and encouraged in our society. Disclosure is coming from us, and our job is to recover from all the assaults, social engineering, and thousands of years of trauma. So this is what we're seeing and why people get so extreme, that you cannot like wake them up, because it's gotten so, it's taken over their nervous system. And it just gets worse and worse the more they feed it. And it can be very, very difficult to remove, and people have to be willing and wanting to. You know, they have to have enough of a sense, okay, something's not right and I can't seem to unhook myself. Well, that's the place to start. So anyway, so we got the Nephilim reversal grid, but then, you know, the Saturn-Moon matrix, back to that. The rings of Saturn, according to David Icke, are a massive broadcast system broadcasting a fake reality. DNA holds all the information we will ever need to build and maintain the human body. Researchers at Boston University and Harvard Medical School studied that 98% of our DNA that remains unable to be decoded is called trash DNA. So that's a huge, huge part of our reality that we don't have access to, and it's called junk. Well, that's the bigger picture that we are wanting to remember. Without having that, we are literally being recycled in this holographic time loop. Okay, so check out this picture. DNA plugged, unplugged, memory erased. Junk DNA. So I'm not going to read through all this. You can, you know, replay and put it on pause, but the DNA, like the really, really bad part of the DNA damage began about 5,500 years ago when the Babylon Sumer invasion happened. It erased DNA, race memory at Stonehenge, except for the chosen ones, which are the reptilians that consider themselves the chosen ones. Everybody has been to war about who the chosen one is, and that's just a bunch of BS. We're all chosen ones. We got 7 root races, 5 cloister races. We all have a particular energy, and we're rebuilding DNA, like that first slide. So unity consciousness is the importance of us being able to share those, you know, codes so that we can rebuild the architecture and begin to switch on those dormant strands. And just like our astrological chart, we're all given unique maps, but every single map is guiding a person into the 0 point to become free of these continual patternings so that we can gain wisdom from the patternings and begin to, you know, get into the higher levels of what those aspects represent until we get into that 0 energy and we're not so pushed around by, you know, these different patterns or life lessons or whatever. So it distorted the holographic tree of life. It took out the 8D and 12D. So the artificial tree of life template is basically the kind of grid system that we've been dealing with. It blocked life force and Kundalini naturally flowing. It affected our glands, our pineal, our pituitary, our hypothalamus, and our thyroid, shortened lifespan and damaged immunity, set up for recycling to astral 4D, scrambled the geometric codes and morphogenetic fields, blocked multidimensional perception, rewrote human history from 5,500 years and the patriarchal domination, enslavement agenda for Earth humans. So we don't hear about like the Essenes much or the teachings of, some of these more advanced civilizations and cultures, those teachings got wiped out. There were major holocausts and just the wiping out of all this stuff. So of course, none of it's going to come through in our school systems at all. It's just the indoctrination. So I said I wouldn't read it, but I did. But you guys, anyway, that is the root of our junk DNA. So our junk DNA also corresponds with the Earth grids. Our DNA period does. So if the Earth grids are being messed with and distorted, it keeps our junk DNA alive. Basically, mass biological and mind control devices exist well beyond the technology of implanting tiny physical chips into humans, which accompanied many of the abductions by the Greys and non-benevolent Zetas. And also, they are an impending application of such electronic devices by the one world government to the population. Even brain signatures radiated by government HARP and Gwen towers are relatively superficial compared with the ancient existing global grid systems, which can be used for manipulating the evolution of all life on the planet, including the planet's evolution itself. And that's from Noel Huntley, PhD, about global grid systems. So it's literally like giving it a script. It's programming it to create an artificial timeline that leads to more enslavement of the human race. Fortunately, like I said, there's been a lot of grid workers and they've been successful. I'm not going to go into this, but you guys can just, kind of read it. But it's about, on our planet today, the geometric architecture, something called the VP network, and or the dodecahedron and pentagonal controls over carbon matter. These are alien structures and AI systems that build binary bi-wave geometric systems that have been installed in the planetary brain to create a certain low-level frequency field. And so this is the reversal kind of energy that has made the ether not available to us. And so we're in different times now. These geometries actually are a part of the program that is the governance of where these energies are directed and what they're used for. This is the game with the negative alien agenda, with the artificial architecture, which collects energy, harvests it, and sends it off planet to their preferred people, namely the MyLab, secret societies, and the New World Order that are carrying out the control agendas. So those energies are collected and basically given with preference to beings who serve whatever their control-based agenda is. So it's kind of like feeding the troops. It's really kind of sick and twisted. So you can find out more. There's all that on the Ascension glossary. And so when we look at the correction of, the Earth grids, it's also the correction of our DNA. And so what we do in our own inner work will affect all of this in the outer world. The negative agenda had a very long time to plan for this awakening that we're currently in. They didn't expect us to be where we're at right now, though. And so their plans are kind of falling short. As we see everything that they try and do, every card they play, there is a brilliant chess move coming from the other side. And we're not just talking about, a presidential figure. We're talking about white hats. We're talking about positive military. We're talking about things on a galactic scale, other races that are assisting right now. These negative agendas, though, they require emotional, etheric, and vital energy to sustain themselves. Mankind has long been their primary food source. They feed upon energies that are in resonance with their own soul vibrations, negative emotions, psychological suffering, and perversions. So that's the indoctrination, is that they're engineering humans to be their food source, but also to not look towards morality or spirituality or truth. The first rule of Satanism is the law of reversal. Baphomet was designed as an intentional Antichristos Sophia emanation used to pervert hierogamic union and intersacred marriage through sexual energy harvesting and the exploitation of human beings. Baphomet rituals were spread on the earth through a secret pact of blasphemy and sacrilege designed to utterly destroy the Christ Sophia architecture. True natural and cosmic law in its organic flow is the law of unconditional love. So we got to recognize this. This is why it's so important to build healthy energy fields around ourselves, around our homes, and make it, the sanctuary that you can exist within. Because then that energy will continue to grow because you're able to integrate, energies from your higher self, and you're able to really illuminate that divine blueprint. So if you're not being poked at and harassed with all these intrusions coming in from the electronics or from false news sources, we have a chance to really raise our vibration in the comfort of our own home and achieve amazing things. Because, reclaiming our spiritual abilities and self-mastery, I mean, we see what yogis are capable of doing and spiritual masters, But, it's going to take a bit. There's a lot of detoxing that needs to happen. There's a lot of deprogramming, a lot of traumas, and a lot of wounds that we have to address in order to create the optimal space for ourselves to do this. And it's really difficult in these times. The very thing that's kind of triggering us and pushing us over the edge, in response to it, we have to be at our best spiritually and energetically. It's not very easy, when we're witnessing all this, and especially if you're empathic. It can be really, really hard to hold your space together. But the whole point of building community is that we can assist one another. And that's what I want to do with the Cosmic Gaia subscription. There's 4 events a month. I can even do more than that. And, we just build community and work this kind of energy together. Like next Saturday, I'm going to have an expert on trauma, who's going to give some great counsel, I'm sure, to a lot of people. So the AI timeline wars, as you see, the particle, antiparticle, and the full spectrum of frequency, is 12 to 15. 12 being more in the where there's physical form, and the 13, 14, 15 is the cosmic trinity. We're dealing with a 13-dimensional planetary core, though. The mother energy anchored her energy into the planetary core, and it's a 13-dimensional energy, which connects us to the 0 point and also Andromeda. So this energy has returned, and I'll get into it more. But when we look at the 13th gate and the significance of the number 13, that is very much about, human advancement and kind of connecting with our divine mother, and, really recovering and healing, because a part of how dark it's been for the last 26,000 years is the mother energy wasn't fully anchored. And so that feeling of loss and disconnect from our true mother has been very painful, for people. It's been very, very dark. And so they're just trying to trick people out of aligning with this in whatever way they can. But it's here. Everything that we possibly could need is here for us to advance ourselves. But the collective has got to get on board. So then you've got the Phantom Matrix overlay AI timelines. And that's a 10-sphere model. So fortunately, there's a group of individuals called the Orphem. They were created by the founder races. They hold all 3 founder flames, which is violet, gold, and blue. They're mostly associated with the blue ray consciousness, which connects to the goddess in the 13th gate. They were brought in to interact more in order to handle the opposition and the wars. They crossed with the human imprint in order to be able to take on the densities through the human form. They are considered to be aligned with the guardian founder races. The Anunnaki was supposedly created in response to this to be an opposing group, and are connected to the fallen Elohim and reptilian and Syrian DNA mixing. So all these different hybridization things that took place. But, when we think about starseeds, advanced souls, crystal kids, whatever, indigo, and some of the avatars that have come to the planet, they're holding that aura from consciousness. It can be switched on within all beings to help heal the genetic digression that has taken place, but the willingness has to be there. So anyway, if you look at this 13, 14, 15, you've got these different energies: universal earth core, aquamarine, the aqua ray, and that is the mother arc, and that is the earth core sun, diamond heart. Then you've got the universal pale gold, and that's connected to the avian seraphim. And then you've got the 15, which is considered the father arc. So you got the mother, the father, and the child. So the father arc is a universal pale magenta, and it's connected to the cetaceans and the whales and the aquafarians. And the aquafarians went extinct a long, long time ago with the electrical wars, but they have been able to come back. So in the earth human lineage, there are 7 root races and 5 additional races seated within the earth gene pool. The 7 root races are called the earth seeds. Each earth seed root race evolution cycle was to develop one of the first 1 to 5 strands of DNA within the 12-strand DNA. The latter additional 5 races are referred to as the cloister races. Their function was to keep the 12-strand DNA potential alive for the entire human race and represent the advancement of human evolution. The cloister races are also called the starseeds. So this information is chelantic science, and also, stuff that Lisa Renee brings in from the Guardian groups. These are universal truths. These should be textbooks that we hand our children growing up. This isn't just theoretical. I mean, this is like the real science and education, spiritual science, I guess you could call it, or just quantum physics and spiritual galactic history truth, the whole picture. And so some individuals have been able to download all this stuff. So I like to bring it into my presentations because it just doesn't get much better than that. Many starseeds were aware of a psycho-spiritual warfare between extraterrestrial races and came to this planet as embodied human intelligence portals to feed back to the overall group effort and its reconnaissance mission back to their home planet or universe. However, when most got here, they were subjected to many alien implants, mind control systems, dark force infiltration, and victim-victimizer software, like all human beings. For those reasons, many still remain asleep or subverted to the fact of their true spiritual mission and consciousness. However, it has been generally understood that during the end cycle, the neutron window is opening between the third dimensional planet Earth, which intersects with the universal transharmonic gateways. The transgate timelines are that which allow these starseeds to reconnect and return to their home frequency after this tour of duty. So, I mean, this is what I'm kind of trying to say to people, there's going to be a certain point where those with these kind of missions are not here anymore. And you're going to kind of miss us, I bet. Or we're going to see a mass global awakening, and that's what I'm hoping for. But, bifurcation is real. We're not going to be able to share a timeline that, continues to digress. We're not going to be able to match. I mean, the frequency is so incredibly different. And there's just no way. There will be an absolute refusal anyway. What that looks like as far as, does it mean the mothership's coming, or we go, underground, or we just, some kind of split just occurs and we don't really fully recognize it. It's just a part of what we wake up to every day as the timeline subtly changes for the better. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like. But anyway, we're undergoing a war over timelines, the invading forces of the negative alien agenda who use the artificial tree of life as a manifestation grid. And again, that's 10 spheres. So everything we're up against, I share this in a lot of my presentations. The list is long. Nephilim reversal grid, false flag agendas to lower consciousness and create false fake war on terror, 5G, directed energy weapons, pedophilia, SRA, transhumanisms, whatever took place with these ET government treaties, which have been around a long time, false movements, and medical industry taking advantage of our disempowerment, pushing things on us, not supporting our connection with nature and earth plant medicines, possible fake alien invasion. I don't know about that yet. I mean, false ascended masters, perhaps too. I mean, that's, we're being hit from all directions. Anything that's false is imitating what actually exists. So if we're real true to ourselves and we're real with ourselves, we're going to be able to tell the difference. Anyway, possible second wave, pandemic, riots, we already have that, funded movements and trigger events, and duality increasing. So, and then the psyops, that are continuing to try and divide and conquer us and beat us down into submission. And now the divide and conquer isn't so much about, oh, who did you vote for? Or, although that is very much how it can be, that agenda can funnel through, choosing, sides or being affiliated with this or that. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. But this is different. This is different. This is about truth. This is about ascension, human advancement, or the opposite, New World Order, being locked in our homes. And you guys know the rest of the list. So I've talked about the chemtrails a lot over many, many years, but this is why we're seeing what we're seeing, and why we're not seeing more of a mass awakening, because the ruling elite have devised chemtrails as a means of covertly microchipping us all in order to create antennas inside of us via nanotechnology. So it makes us totally controllable via a psycho-civilized society. Using HARP microwave antennas, the National Security Agency can establish a seamless computer link direct to our brains. But first they're using chemtrails to get the nanoparticles into us, which are reassembling in our bodies to form the antennas. So, when we're awake, if we come in with a starseed mission, knowing that we're going to be up against all this stuff, we relate to these things very differently than somebody who is not going to even look at this kind of information, who literally lives on the TV and their identity is based on what they learned, not on, who they are on an authentic level. It's still really hard to witness because we want everybody to be okay, but they're much more susceptible to this working, whereas those that are awake are already in a higher frequency, and they can kind of collapse and neutralize a lot of this stuff within their own being. But the main goal with all that is to control the bioneurology of the human population through electromagnetic signals, prescription drugs, medical devices, GMOs, and an assortment of toxins and poisons placed in the water, air, and food supply that generate many human diseases, while ensuring that the knowledge to cure these diseases is made unavailable to the masses. And that's the thing with like the different choices of here, take this shot instead of, you know, work with some real, you know, good medicine. And we've been dealing with these, you know, patented technologies like MK Delta and programming behavior and attitudes in the general population. And it can create fatigue, mood swings, behavior dysfunction, and criminality. So when you see these big riots happening and this looting going on, and you see these, you know, towers and a lot of the electronic stuff, you know, hanging around, they can beam this onto crowds. They can literally like beam this into crowds. The transmission and reception through television, radio antennae, power lines, even mattress spring coils. So that's really disturbing. That's why the EMF protection stuff is really important. And yeah, you can kind of read through the other ones, but you know, these are real patented, you know, technologies to control the human race. So it is like we're just being hit all angles. So people are merged through nanites in the air, food, and water, and a supercomputer system sends waves of desires out at just the right moment to influence the masses in coordination with the media, scalar and weather events, and natural biological cycles. I'm just looking at the time. Okay. Everything is mapped out by an artificial intelligence system designed to resist against humanity becoming aware of their true power and the reality of the situation, including the threats and possibilities. Everything is a distraction or an artificially implanted impulse or desire. The entire civilization is under this net, but we have the power to overcome this. We also have nets or seals or fences in our DNA. In order to bust through the nets or the fences in our DNA, we go into the dark night of the soul. We begin to move through that dense energy. And the way that we experience it in the outer world is like the gatekeepers or the plants put in place, or, you know, people coming into our life to derail us. It's always to kind of like defeat us so that we drop our energy and we feel helpless and hopeless, when we got to just keep pushing through it and be that warrior and just bust through that fence and bust through that fence. Because it's so easy to just feel like you're failing. Like, wow, I've done all this meditation and yoga and I'm eating so well. Why aren't I getting anywhere? Because once you hit that fence and you feel, you know, an attack or some level of defeat, you know, it's easy to just be like, none of this is working. But, you know, don't get discouraged, because that's just a part of the journey. So controller programs is a term used to describe multiple layers of victimizer mind control software that are used to psychologically and emotionally program humanity to think thoughts of lust, violence, and hatred, and to believe the archonic deception behaviors, fear-based control belief systems are actually a normal way of life on Earth. So, you know, it's like, oh, we're just trying to wake up. We're just trying to learn, you know, how to be better people. No, we're actually learning what's been manipulating us, what dark technologies have been hiding behind the scenes, how that connects with archons and parasites and entity attachments, you know? So, and that's why we gotta be careful with our electronics. I mean, all of us are constantly on our phones and computer. So there's great stickers that you can put on. And I really believe in this company. And Lance, the person who sells this product, who I'm connected with, you know, he explains it in a video I have up on YouTube, if you're curious. So the Saturn-Uranus square looks set to collapse any structure that's no longer in resonance with our greater potential. The system needs reform or a total overhaul, but we need to look closely at who benefits from the changes being proposed. Constant surveillance, mandated vaccines, a digital economy, and a universal basic income run by AI are not a recipe for freedom. So this is where the dark Saturn trickery comes in. How this plays out around the world depends on local conditions and the nature of the culture in specific countries and what kind of leadership they have. So we could see more freedom in some places and less in others, right? As we've seen, you know, the mandates are way extreme in like Victoria, Australia, in the UK and Spain and France. I mean, like, it's really taking over Europe, and they're coming for us next. And with Trump not in the position he needs to be in, or that administration, it makes us incredibly vulnerable to this total takeover. But, you know, we're just going to keep praying, and we're going to keep focusing and doing all that we can to educate the masses, because it really does come down to the people to put a stop to this. So this particular aspect going into next year could trigger necessary reforms, but whether the new system is better than the old depends on us being clear about what kind of world we want to live in, and then demanding it while we still can. We have to see a full picture to know what we're dealing with. Our vulnerabilities are being taken advantage of as we let go of the old paradigm. Letting go of the old paradigm is a transformation process. And if we can't let it go, we can be sabotaged and back in a negative feedback loop. Redirecting our energy towards building a new and better world is key. You need to keep your creative channels and your creative energy engaged and things that are inspiring and projects and like creative activities that, you know, keep you inspired and just help engage that creative energy. Because when it's not engaged in our own flow, it's very easily like hooked into by other things, you know, especially if you're feeling, you know, very reactive and stressed out. If you're just kind of in a zone and you're doing fine, then you're probably cool. Your energy is flowing and you're in your own space, and, you know, meditation and just deep breathing can be all about that. But if you look at these initiations with these different outer planets, you know, we experience the shadow side of it. Sometimes we have to experience the shadow side to get to the higher level of it. That's usually the way it always goes. So we got Uranus and Taurus. That's all about the shock and upheaval leading to awakening. The shadow side of it is panic attacks, PTSD, nervous breakdown, losing connection to higher guidance. It's also the AI and dark technologies and the things that are supplementing us. Instead of us advancing ourselves, we turn to technology instead. That's the shadow side. So what do we do with the shadow side? We have to do the shadow work to bring conscious energy into what's unconscious so that we can move through these initiations and not give our power away to somebody else to solve it for us, like some, you know, pharmaceutical perhaps. So we got Neptune and Pisces, consciousness, freedom. It represents the creative imagination, but its shadow side is like fear, the virus, the mind viruses that hook into us, disinfo that we might believe in, confusion, all designed to infect our creative channels. It's like living in the delusion. And also like self-undoing and addiction also relates to the shadow side of Neptune. The Pluto in Capricorn, death of matrix control. It's all about transformation. But the shadow side, the suicidal thoughts, heavy energy, darkness, feeling stuck in the birth canal and not wanting to get out of the cocoon, not knowing that you're really kind of stuck and like almost like a prison cell being built around the cocoon. This is what they're trying to do. What happens when we resist these energies though? Our immune system is lowered, we get hijacked, our energies get siphoned, we feel hopeless, lost, and confused. We're in survival, we're reactive, and we're ungrounded. So we need to increase our spiritual immune system and heal our mental and emotional bodies, and the physical will follow. True medical leaders need to guide this process too, but of course they're being censored. So Nostradamus predicted some stuff, but it was really based more on the unhealed Earth grids. So the probabilities that you can tap into as far as predictions go, before there's the repair work being done, would paint a much more negative picture than the truth of what has been made possible due to a lot of the benevolent groups and starseed missions that have come in. But what we're really looking for as far as disclosure is understanding the different ET races and their guardianship, and also the genetic modification programs, breeding programs, and the dark technologies, and also our hidden galactic history. Earth grids, we need to understand, organic ascension timeline, and the full spectrum of frequency that's available to us. Secret space programs are also important for disclosure. We have to understand what that is. We have to have full disclosure about that. Also, MyLabs, transhumanism, and other ET agendas, malevolent and benevolent, involved in the grand Earth experiment. Also, abductions and implanting, and what different agendas exist and what is our relationship to them. We also need disclosure of full-on the crimes against humanity, using humans as currency, and the parasitic nature of those who are part of the Luciferian covenants, the SRA, and the child trafficking. We also need disclosure about the plan, which includes the activation of positive military forces and their connection with benevolent ETs and the starseed representatives. If that disclosure doesn't come too quick, let's just know it's there, because there would be a reason that it needs to stay somewhat quiet for a time. The rest of it needs to come out. Understanding also our divine template, how harmonic universes exist in our DNA, knowing about the timeline shift also in the mother energy that's here, and taking on the challenge upon ourselves, challenging ourselves to get super aligned with it. So disclosure is a mixed bag of all sorts of things, but all these things represent important disclosures. So planet Earth's local sun is a Stargate, and it's possible for certain craft to come and go in and out of the solar system. The fourth dimensional Stargate on the Earth is located in Giza, Egypt, and this is the opening into the astral plane where the trajectory between the sun and Earth is interconnected through geometric fields of instruction sets based on the grouping of platonic solids, which are building blocks of matter or blueprint of the universe. The Anunnaki had taken control of this area of the planet in order to gain control over our sun, as the sun is related to activating human DNA, as well as to control access of the sun portal. Each sun and star in the universe are interconnected through the morphogenetic fields or plasma filaments that create the webbing that connects all of the stars' consciousness together. So that's from the Ascension Glossary, Lisa Renee. And so, wow, you know, some of that terminology is very difficult for people. So I like to include her stuff so people know, look, you know, look at how it's explained in such technical terms. But like when you step away from it, like we know this, we know this, we know this. So when we look at our skies being sprayed, dimming like the vibration of the sun energy getting to us, this is another tactic. I mean, there's multiple tactics with a lot of these different, you know, weapons. But you definitely want to spend some time, you know, with the sun beaming on you. You know, every time the sky is blue, go outside, make some time with the sun, because it's really going to help your DNA. And of course, people talk about solar events and different, you know, solar flash and, you know, and then the Schumann resonance and this and that. So, you know, things are happening. So it's been a lot what we've been going through, but we've always been going through stuff. We just didn't really know how engineered it is, right? We've dealt with so much trauma in our human history, but we've been going through so much lately as far as, you know, being clear enough and awake enough and just feeling desperate because so many, you know, refuse to really see what's going on, and it's costing way too much. You know, wrapping our heads around lockdown, being masked, and the vaccine issue is enough to process as is. But then we have the disclosure piece, how much we desperately need disclosure. As many people are not prepared to deal with that, but that's too bad. The influences of the controller groups and their alien alliances, people aren't ready to hear about. But one may wonder what we can feel reassured about as far as the benevolent groups. So we don't want to just share, you know, all the dark. There's so much more of the light energy, of the positive. So there are benevolent groups and positive military forces, and what operations are underway are happening. Many feel quite confident with what they know, but feel there isn't enough to convince them. So hopefully some of this can help. But the thing is, you know, we don't want to have misplaced hope. And that's why we all have a role to play. We can't just sit back and say, oh, they're going to take care of it. Well, it's important to trust that something's happening, but, you know, we got to engage ourselves a bit in not the drama, not getting depleted by getting yanked into the drama, but like where you can direct your intent and creative energy to build upon something and invest into something that is going to be helpful for others, or just even just getting any kind of information out that you can. There are easy ways to, you know, develop newsletters, get email lists, and just keep sending stuff out to, you know, friends and family. And hopefully they won't ignore it. So, you know, we're dealing with the voter fraud right now, and we hear about the sting operation and the watermark on the ballots, and that there's going to be possible mass arrest. It's going to take about 10 days. You know, it's very tense and trying to be constantly waiting on something, right? But there's thousands upon thousands of people in this country that are working real hard to make sure that they don't get away with this. When we look at the rallies and we look at the amount of people that showed up, and we look at you know, some of it out there, and, you know, negative energy, theft, dark technologies, you know, all of it can be collapsed when we raise our vibration enough. All of that can be collapsed because it doesn't have a leg to stand on. It only has power based on the power it steals. So it requires people to feed it. If people don't feed it, it doesn't have any other support system. It doesn't have any other power that sustains it. It's disconnected itself from source energy. It's reliant on harvesting and siphoning. So this is, you know, incredibly important. You know, there might be a mass meditation you can create in your local area, you know, or just on the internet. And you know, and so part of the Cosmic Gaia subscription too is to really help support your mission and help expose you to more people through my platform and the platforms that I've built. So the timeline shift I was talking about, when the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Ophiuchus, basically the Melchizedeks are the genetic hosting race of the Earth's ascension cycle for the last 35,000 years. As of 2009, 2012, our planet went beyond that to prepare for the return of the 13th gate pillar of Mother Ark and the crystal star hosting, basically the return of the goddess, the override frequency. When we look at the return of the goddess energy, we're talking about the planetary consciousness. We're talking about what anchored back into the Earth core, the 13-dimensional monad matrix, opening us up to the 0 point. And it's based in a higher level of sacred union and alchemical marriage between our DNA strands in order to illuminate the true divine blueprint. So the return of that is very activating to people, and they begin to step into, that frequency within themselves, that template, within themselves, which does hold the override frequency. So anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit. Guardians are calling this aspect of Mother Aquamarine Ray energy a magnetic force that's powering up in our Earth core, the Mother Arc. It is similar to understanding that we have poked a hole in the mind-controlled frequency fence net and reconnected with the Mother Arc, the Aqua Ray, and the Aquiline Sun through the Andromeda core. So the 0 point unified field is the merging of the galactic cores of Andromeda and Milky Way. The Milky Way is a fallen system. Now we're back in alignment and connection with the galactic core of Andromeda. And that's why so many advanced souls have been able to be born here recently. A lot have been born previous, but it's very difficult to function in society and to be born into this low density. Anyway, so what's happening within the Earth core is also happening, on the galactic core level. And it's spreading this energy throughout its grid systems, and it's activating, humans all over the place. And so this is why we're seeing such an extreme sort of contrast between those that are really becoming engineered and they're just so indoctrinated versus those that are really having an awakening. It's like, it's really hard to process that people are talking about racism and, and just the low level, dialoguing of white privilege and all this kind of stuff. It's like, man, it's just it's just hard to wrap your head around, because it could be like, when you're connected with the mother energy, it's like the mother of everything. It's the womb of everything. And a mother loves all her children equally. I mean, it's just like, and people don't realize that that's a real energy that we all hold in our hearts. But like, you can't say anything. You can't say anything to those people. So anyway, it's important that we understand, in order to upgrade our DNA, we need to understand what our junk DNA is and how we are elemental beings. The platonic solids, octahedron, tetrahedron, icosahedron, hexahedron, and the dodecahedron, which represent air, fire, water, earth, and the dodecahedron being connected to ether, time and space, complete the global grid network. But there have been these dark technologies called reversal 55 that has compromised the dodecahedron and it put it in reversals, like I was talking about. When you look at the inverted pentagram, that's a symbol of that the ether element has been unavailable, and it's all been about the satanic ritual abuse and these dark rituals that have been feeding the dark Saturn in order to maintain control over humans. In DNA, the nitrogenous base is made up of nucleic acids: cytosine, guanine, adenine, and thymine. Metaphysically, each of these nucleic acids is connected to the elemental substance of the planet as air, water, fire, and earth. When we pollute these four elements on the earth, we pollute the corresponding nucleic acid in our DNA. So we know that there's that fifth element, right? Well, the fifth element is actually connected to our mitochondrial DNA, and the mitochondrial DNA is connected to the mother. Now that the mother energy is returned, our mitochondrial DNA can heal. And then we get that ether energy. And that's what soul alchemy is, that we're transforming our DNA, that we're purifying our inner elements, and we're moving into reclaiming the treasures of our junk DNA, because we're elemental. But the elements are going to be filled with toxicity and pollution if we don't have the purifying element of the ether. It just stagnates and it builds up. And, when we think of diseases and cancer and everything under the sun that compromises our physical body, it's been that lack of access to the ether. And so the medical industry has made a ton of money off of us. And the power structures in our world have exploited us greatly because they have kept that energy not available, which means that we have a certain dependency to these outer institutions, not feeling very empowered within our own being. But this has changed now. I mean, it's always been available as far as, herbs and, healing practices and ways to mitigate the damages of how we've been out of alignment for so many thousands of years because of these cataclysms and exploded planets. So it's taken a lot for advanced souls to incarnate in the last 26,000 year cycle in the face of all that. And they knew that things wouldn't be possible to really begin to switch on until this particular window period. But a lot of individuals have come holding space for these times. But now it's available on a level that is available to everybody, not just It's something that, like, if we stand in alignment with it, it'll actually do the work. It'll just kind of circulate through our being without us having to do a whole lot, because of where we are right now in the stellar activation cycle. So the chemical constituents of our DNA is an elemental base. So our physical body is an elemental body, and it's composed of these 4 base level chemical constituents. We can use the 4 elements to understand the 4 levels of chemicals that comprise our DNA, which is earth, fire, water, air. These particle elements have gone through so much in the history of human evolution, and lots of distortions that had been created on the planetary levels, because remember, we are interfacing with the planetary body. It is us. We are making up the collective body of the planet. You know, we are micro versions of this larger picture. So as we see, our oceans have been heavily polluted, nuclear plants, you know, earthquakes, you know, seeping in, the nuclear energy seeping in, radiation in our waters. We see our skies being sprayed. We see the fire element being misused with bombs and weapons and war. And we see, you know, degradation of the environment and animal extinction. So our DNA is mimics that, or not mimics it, but it is a replica of that. So we have toxicity in our bodies. We have bodies that degenerate. We die, we age. You know, our water element, you know, is pretty murky, or it has been. It's easy to just slip into depression, you know, but the ether element is helping us to restore that crystalline energy in that water. And just this huge healing is taking place now that the ether element is available. And if you look at all these different zodiac signs and how they correspond with an organ of the body, and how each zodiac sign is either earth, air, fire, water, and now we've got Ophiuchus, which is ether, you can see how much our organs are related to the zodiac, but also the earth grids and our DNA. And this is why astrology is so much more than people realize. It's not just, oh, let's predict stuff with it. No, it's, you get into the medical part of it, you know, you can get to the root of illness. You know, what's gone on? What did you inherit? You know, what behavior patterns have you adopted through going through the school systems? What have certain relationships done to you? You know, what has trauma done to you? Like, where is it affecting you the most? Right. So when we look at the different zodiac signs and the organs that they correspond with and the elements, you know, we can begin to see the chart as a way to tap into what that junk DNA is in order to resolve a lot of the patternings that have kept us out of balance. Because these patternings and all our life experiences doing is directing us towards learning how to come into balance and to restore wholeness. So RNA's primary responsibility is to make proteins according to the instruction sets encoded within a cell's DNA. However, in RNA, the nitrogenous base is made up of nucleic acids, like I mentioned. In both DNA and RNA, the mitochondrial DNA serves as the 5th principal element of cosmic ether, which is sourced only from the mother. Thus, through the mitochondrial DNA damage, humanity is grossly addicted to consuming everything in the external world to fill this energy void within our cells. So now that the mother energy is back, it's really helping people step away from those kind of behaviors. So that's really good. And that just shows that, you know, the return of the mother energy. So this year of 2020 has brought on the restoration of the cosmic mother principle, with corrections being made in the planetary body to heal the DNA and RNA, the chromosomal and mitochondrial bonds that fully support the pregnancy, birth, and spiritual emanation for the Christos Sophia rainbow shield, right? So while all this craziness is going on, 2020 also represents this. And we're about to enter, moving through Ophiuchus, which is where we will get cleansed by these energies for a good chunk of time. And that's inspired by a recent newsletter from Lisa. So Ophiuchus, themes connected with Ophiuchus, 13th gate, 0-point unified field, sun moving through the 13th sign as of 2010. November 30th to December 17th, the solidification of a timeline. You know, once we get to the other end, you know, very soon, December 21st, it's happening. So we really, really got to utilize these energies. We really, really need to like make this chunk of time the most important chunk of time that we've ever experienced. So Ophiuchus is the creatrix connectivity. It's pure, transparent, crystalline light, divine mother, and the cleansing power of cosmic love, recoding our DNA, aligning to the cosmic heart of Lyra and Andromeda and Universal Center, rebirthing, cleansing, blood, breath, and mitochondria. So during this time, November 30th to December 17th is the time that we can actually heal our mitochondrial DNA and begin to switch on dormant DNA. And how crucial is that? You know, especially before any kind of inauguration happens, that we can all move into this energy and get like majorly activated. It's ruled by ether and it's connected to Chiron. So Chiron, the wounded healer, means that if we are going to heal and step into this, we have to be willing to face our wounds. If we're in denial of our wounds, we tend to act out. We tend to just slip into negative behavior patterns or, you know, wanting to mask it or cover it up. But this phase is the solar alignment with the cosmic ether, which is at the core of the galactic center, which represents pouring of healing spiritual waters into the earth and humanity from Mother God. Previously, these waters were corrupted by entrapping the Mother Principle and the gold ray seraphim on earth. So the ether energy that we're going to be moving through December 30th to December 17th can change everything, because this is the presence of the mother energy. This means that the kind of cycles of history that we've seen in the past that have led to trauma and devastation and war and destruction doesn't need to move in that direction. So it's incredibly important that you meditate every day, that you work with anything that keeps you connected to the earth, keeps you grounded in your body. So, you know, this information's out there. And so I was talking about the inverted pentagram and how that represents our inability to connect with the ether and how all that is turning around. The Venus transits are a huge part of turning that around and creating that correction. Anyway, the inverted pentagram or five-pointed star, so prevalent in Satanism, is also symbolic of this unbroken time cycle, the vibrational prison. So of course, if there's a correction and the ether's available, we don't have to be imprisoned. And that's why the light forces are on our side, not just the positive beings in leadership that we're seeing or the positive military and the white hats or whatever. It's us. It's what we're connecting to. It's what's happening on a cosmic and earthly level with the mother energy being back. So they know that they can't win this, but they want to make us as miserable as possible. And they're just like having a temper tantrum fit. They're trying to utilize this AI technology to mess up the voting. And it's pretty scary, the kind of technology that they can use to, you know, disrupt all of this. But anyway, the fifth element ether connects to alchemy, and our throat chakra is the key to overcoming this. Because we look at the fifth chakra and the fifth element, where does alchemy take place? Alchemy takes place with our words. You know, if we're deprogrammed and we're speaking from authenticity and truth, the words that we speak are going to affect our physical environment. And it's not just our words, it's our thoughts. You know, the fifth chakra is also connected to telepathy and clairaudience. So the kind of abilities that we have, you know, when we look at like 5D Ascension, it's really about reclaiming this part of ourselves, our fifth chakra, and our capacity to just speak the reality that we want, be the script writer of our reality. So it comes down to the power of our words and overcoming trauma and being our true self, because our words create our reality way more than we can possibly, you know, realize. The things that you say to your friends and loved ones can make or break the kind of day that everybody has, you know? So anyway, the ether being available, the 13th sign, is how we are turning everything around. And it's been this slow process since the timeline shifted in 2010. And again, it's ruled by Chiron. Chiron helps us to understand our mission through wounds and afflictions and shows us what we're missing and longing for. It connects us with our galactic consciousness. So the North Node went from Cancer, Capricorn, which meant that we had to deal with the Saturn-Moon matrix stuff, and then moved into Gemini North Node and Sagittarian South Node. And so that's the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its tail. And in order for us to achieve that integration of polarity, we need to be able to access the ether. And the most important thing is that we face our wounds. Maybe write down the biggest wounds that you have, and what can you set up for yourself to address it and make it a priority? Dealing with your traumas, dealing with your wounds. I would highly suggest that on top of meditation and connecting closely with the earth, that from November 30th to December 17th, you focus real hard on your wounds. Doesn't mean that they're just going to heal right away, but when we bring consciousness and awareness to it, we can at least warn people. We can at least take accountability, take responsibility, so that we're not victims and always triggered and upset by things that people do and say, you know. And that's what they're encouraging with these movements, is victim mentality. So again, they're focusing on the shadow part of it and the inversion of all of it, trying to keep us in a really low place, when this is the most ultimate time to create a huge leap and step into the fullness of all that we are. In the midst of the outer chaos, the absolute planetary architecture is quietly transforming through a deep and powerful cleansing, as the Sophionic plasma shield anchored in the 2D core is effectively burning out extremely dense anti-life forces and parasites that are buried in multidimensional layers and extracting them from out of the earth. This is the ether working its magic, which is happening within our own beings if we allow it. The planetary aspects in their higher octaves are helping us connect with this and integrate it. So some of this I pulled from Lisa's latest newsletter and just added, you know, just kind of put it in my own words. I mean, I've been talking about the Sophia energy since I can remember. When I first was a speaker, before I even met her, you know, everything was about the Sophia energy, the Christ Sophia template. So, but seeing this in technical terms so that we can really, really understand, and not just technical terms, but like really highly like advanced ways to articulate it, is just incredibly comforting, because you know, there's something that we know and that we're doing and experiencing, and it's amazing, you know, that it's just highly confirmed through very detailed information. So that really helped me when I came across her work, because it was just like all the downloads when I was younger had a lot to do with just Venus. Well, the Venus stuff has always been, but yeah, it's always been there, all these downloads about all this kind of stuff. So I like to pull in different sources that back up what I know deep within me to be true, that I've been writing about even when I was a teenager. Some of my journaling and all that got destroyed. It's a long story, huge bummer. I would love to just kind of look back. It was just such a different time. I was going through some serious hell and dark night of the soul journeys that were never ending. It was insane. It was totally insane. And I just had all these downloads. Ugh, I'm kind of sick of saying the word downloads, but it's getting all these epiphanies and insights and all this guidance that, you know, really just made it clear and made a lot of sense to me, made everything clear. So, and I've been talking about it ever since I became a public person. I was like, well, I'm not just going to talk about the Mars recruitment. I'm going to talk about the real big picture stuff, that it's all what it's all about, you know, why these things are playing out on the world stage and in our secret space programs. I mean, it all connects. So if you look at the full spectrum of frequency, there's 15, you know, chakras. Some say there's more than that, but there's probably, you know, smaller chakras. Some say we need to get rid of our chakras. I don't agree. I think some need to be turned down. Some need to be blended and integrated, because the fences in our DNA are very similar to the space between our chakras and what separates our chakras. You know, it's sort of like compartmentalism. But if we think about it, we're operating with most of them integrated. You know, we're not just, some people like usually just think from their heads, but there's a lot of us that think from our heads. We think from our hearts. We feel things intuitively. And we also can see through our third eye, and everything's kind of firing, right? But in order to break the time cycle, though, we really need to get beyond the seventh chakra. So if you start to look at the colors of chakras 8 to 15 and the locations of where they are and what part of the body they impact or gland, you got chakras 8 and 9 is the thymus and the thalamus, and it's the permanent seed atom and the medulla oblongata, which is at the base of the skull. And a lot of people have implants that were placed there, ethereal implants since Atlantean times, so that we wouldn't be able to cross that threshold. Then you've got chakras 10, 11, 12, which represents the avatar system and the Lyran higher, you know, harmonic universe. And you've got the galactic soul star 16 inches above the head, the galactic 18 inches above the head, and then the Earth star 6 inches below the feet. And then, as I said, you know, here's the aqua ray 13 is the Earth, and it's 12 inches below the feet. And the Christ 12D shield connects into it. And actually the 12 and 13 are the Christ Sophia. And then you go into the 14, 15, and being in touch with your divine blueprint of the Christ Sophia, you begin to ignite the Father arc, the 15. And then you start that process of creating that magical child and birthing that magical child within our own being. And that's the magic and miracles that we have access to when we access these parts of ourselves. You know, you can find some sound healing music, work with certain essential oils and some crystals, and really hold the intent that you're going to like truly connect with this. And then once it's flowing through your creative energies, you'll notice that you're changing the landscape of the world around you, and your relationships are changing. Some things might fall away because they can't handle the shifts that you're going through, and that's okay. And in these vulnerable times, sometimes it's really, really hard to let go. And that's why I'm just really, really making sure to, build community. So there are cosmic levels of Christ Sophia plasma beings that are here to protect humanity from AI extinction codes through shielding the earth. We have defenders of the Great Mother here on earth and new arrivals serving the Paladorian Covenant. The Paladorian Covenant took place a long, long time ago to help the souls that fell from Tara when it exploded, or Tiamat. And it's a commitment and a devotion from these benevolent groups. And like I was talking about the Starseeds, the cloister races, we got the Aquafarians, and then beings connected to the magenta ray that are dragon lines are here. So all this rebuilding is happening, and the presence of these different frequencies and embodied individuals are to assist us in that. And that's the whole process. You know, we need to come together. We need to share energy without losing boundaries and while remaining sovereign, of course. But just, sharing things through, our writing, our words, and just our presence, and just, our love nature, just being supportive with each other, to each other. So through the current cycle of the Paladorian activation, the next stage for the Paladorian groups are being highlighted, namely the Aquafarian and Crystal Blue Dragon races, to support the rehabilitation of the Blue Ray lineages. The Blue Rays restore the Mother Arc 13th transharmonic gateways throughout multiple harmonic universes and are rebuilding the vertical planetary staff to naturally align into the heart of Andromeda. So that's major. And this is what I swear I was being prepared for as a child. And there was almost like a definite warning. Don't let them take you anywhere. They're going to try and take you somewhere. They're going to try and stop you. I was consumed in all this all my life. All my tattoos are about it too. It's like everything I talk about, it's like all there. It's so funny. So we're definitely going through a global detox. Things may still feel heavy. Difficult news may still present itself. There is a healing crisis that occurs though when one is detoxing something really toxic. But because unity, truth, love, and wisdom are spreading, and we have already laid down a foundation for community and camaraderie as we navigate through the madness, we witness a massive purging, an alchemical process that changes the substance down to the cellular level. It is all of our elements that are going through this. So it's like we're being washed and cleansed. And we're about to hit that time of year where it's going to be easier than ever, even though all this stuff is still going to present itself. We got to shield, we got to ground, and we got to create a sacred space for ourselves. Find that one part of the house that you can just maybe have a ton of house plants and a diffuser with essential oils blowing on you, and some beautiful sound healing music and nice cushy pillows. And maybe, not so much like YouTube and listening to the news. And so I'm saying it because I need to remind myself, because the first thing I do is like, what's going on? And of course, I want to know, but I got to really get in that discipline myself. So we can all just, be supportive to each other and create things. Also, meditation meetings. Waking up for people is painful. We may feel increased sensitivity to the vibration of pain around us, but after every detox, even though you may feel sicker while you're in it, because it also lights up old issues, when you get to the other side, you're clear, you're light, you're transformed. And so a lot of these products that I'm selling are really, really to help support the physical body, to integrate these higher energies. Because it's so easy in these times to just like want the comfort foods that aren't so good, when you can turn the comfort food into something that's super healthy for you. Like my new comfort food is this green drink. Oh, speaking of which, I warm it up slightly, and it's with the Touchstone Essentials product, and the ingredients are mind blowing. It's like amazing. So I'm turning my comfort foods around. I don't know. I've been pretty good about nutrition, but some of these products are excellent. So anyway, as the Baphomet network is being broken down into pieces and getting removed from the planet, the shadow contents of past patterns connected to our pain body may arise and surface for witnessing. I kind of mentioned that before, that old injuries or illnesses. We talked about this in a Zoom meeting we had with the Cosmic Gaia last night, just an exacerbation of like symptoms. So as this network is being broken down, things are being broken down within us, and then they're ready to be released. It's sort of like chiseling off, like, something like that has built up over time that has like gotten really stuck. It's like we're just knocking all that down. If we can be responsible for our own darkness through observing, discerning, and accepting, and then shifting the pain into neutral association and self-love, this is a great opportunity for spiritual healing of the pain body and integrating soul aspects. This in turn helps to set souls free and aids in the exposure of crimes against humanity and unhooks us from the dark Saturn, because the stuff that we do for ourselves and within ourselves have a direct impact on everything in the outer world. This allows for a greater circulation and resolution of difficult aspects that impact our organs and immune system. So I know there's a ton of questions, and I'm kind of close to wrapping this up. But if you can join Cosmic Gaia, I know it's $15 a month, but when you look at it, it's less than $1 a day. It's a lot easier for me to answer questions, to do Zoom events where it's just a Q&A, and and it really helps me to continue my mission and do my research. And so anybody listening in, you might want to jump on that. If you want to just really just get engaged in this kind of stuff and have me help you with answering any questions. But if you're on my newsletter, which is a free newsletter, I'll keep you in the loop about certain events I'll be doing too, but I know I'm not going to be able to get to everybody's question. But anyway, whether we individually or collectively undergo a major spiritual initiation into the higher dimensional frequencies of light and sound, simultaneously the transmission of these higher frequencies into the in-between spaces will flush to the surface the darkest aspects through its many hidden facets of shadow. The universal shadow body holds the incredibly painful traumatic wounds experienced by the collective consciousness that resulted in disconnection with the eternal God source fields. Starseeds, empaths, and the spiritually awakened will begin to see more of these shadow creatures and shadow bodies in a variety of shadow entities in their inner space, as well as the outer scape. So it is a massive, massive detoxing, of entity attachments, parasites within our being. So we might see some pretty gnarly stuff, but we don't want to let that like deter us or confuse us. Like, oh my gosh, this is all doom and gloom and there's so many dark energies and it's all coming up. It's like literally on a spiritual level, our spiritual bodies are going through a detox crisis, a healing crisis in a lot of ways. So we got to be really, really gentle with ourselves. But just look at like the darkest stuff that you're witnessing is the stuff that's leaving, instead of like maybe attaching yourself to the belief that this is your new reality, right? Once we get through a lot of that kind of purging and cleansing and dark night of the soul experiences, then we begin to, activate our galactic chakras. And if you look at the 8th and 9th chakra, it forms an infinity spiral around the head. So obviously if we get that chakra system going, which connects to the gold and silver, masculine and feminine, because everything about our chakra system and our DNA is all about the male-female balance and the integration of polarity in order to switch these things on. And it really, really does require like a break from electronics, do a digital detox, get away from it all for a while. But anyway, when this starts to circulate, obviously it begins to shift the physical body and we start to move from the carbon into the crystalline with the presence of the ether as well. It's clearing and healing our DNA on levels that have not been available, helping us to access our junk DNA, which is really this greater love story. If you look at it, 3 levels of sacred marriage. It's the pathway to crystal consciousness. You've got level 1, which is called building wings, 60, 70, level 2, crystal lotus heart, 8 and 9, level 3, hierogamos, Christos hydroplasmic light, 10, 11, 12, and just connecting into the earth in that 13th gate, it helps to switch the rest on. If we go directly to the mother, and maybe surround ourselves with like aqua crystals, and just everything that just really helps us to feel that, divine connection, we'll begin to be able to switch on, these other levels. And it's a love story. We're literally knocking out all the toxic, dark, like abusive energies that we've been holding on to for thousands of years that have been passed down to us, where disease and genetic damage is sort of the end result of this lack of true love within our beings. That circulation of true love flowing in our beings is going to heal everything. But when we're broken, when we're in this negative kind of relationship with life and we're relying heavily and dependent on the system, it's really difficult. So be gentle with yourself. It's going to take a little while. It's going to be harder for some more than others, you know, but once you get the process started, you don't have to like turn back. There is no failure or defeat. There might be highs and lows as far as how you experience it. But once you devote, once you make that intent clear, then you're on board, even if mistakes get made, excuse me. So if you look at the full picture here, you got personality matrix, 3D Earth, where we're subject to mind control, digression of human, junk DNA, loss of galactic memories, all this kind of stuff. When we're not connecting with the fullness of all that we are, we're very, very prone to all that if we're just in the personality matrix, where it's all about our appearance and who our friends are and what our status is and how much money we have. We're very, very susceptible. But when we move through the veil, the death, rebirth, transformation cycle, you know, even though they're trying to keep us stuck in the birth canal and not like move into the transformation part of it, then we move into the soul matrix. We begin to heal a lot of things in our galactic history because our DNA holds the whole story of our galactic history. We begin to switch on the soul matrix, 4, 5, and 6, the monad matrix, Gaia, you know, where a lot of crazy stuff happened. Orion wars happen, electrical wars, disagreements over the reseeding of humans. That's 7, 8, and 9. You know, we can just bypass all that. Been there, done that, learned a lot. You know, then the avatar matrix, Lyran wars, we had explosions there, but it's the 10, 11, 12, the Christ consciousness, the avatar consciousness, and then the universal mind matrix where life was seeded from 13, 14, 15, threefold founder flame. We can reset, purify, and heal. And all we got to just do is invoke it. We're more powerful than we can realize. You know, Earth is indeed a living entity. Well, I'll just hold this here so you guys can pause it. I want to answer at least a few questions and then you can just pause and read what that was. So Earth is indeed a living entity upon whose back and within whose hearts you all presently reside. And yes, in polarity mechanics, Earth is female with an organically female magnetic D13 monadic core. So Ashiana Dian, Keylontic science. We're overcoming this trauma as we get back into alignment with the galactic plane. So if you look at the 13, it's a supergalactic center. It's the womb. When this chakra is activated, you enter the supergalactic center. That is the womb of the whole universe. It is seated in the core of this planet. It is the infinite mother spirit. It is here that the goddess who is mother resides. Through activating this chakra and connecting with the goddess energies, you become one with the mother, becoming a stargate that enables peace and balance to work through you and enter humanity. It opens us up to the 14 and 15. This is where we are whole. And this is the cosmic trinity, which helps us to bring in 0 point where the mother originates. I mean, that is the portal to get there is the 0 point. So 0 point is finding that neutral field, you know, integrating polarity, finding that balance and wholeness and just, you know, just really just staying in alignment and working the dream energy. It'll be important to take time to meditate and visualize the timeline we want to be on and also trust the fact that we are on a positive trajectory. We can then create it through our words and actions. It's always good to be prepared for some sort of intense global event, but also important to recognize that adversity is pushing us into our greater potential so that we can draw in the substance of divine power and our dream energy from the creative imagination. It is a good idea to come up with some sort of daily routine where there is meditation or the reading of affirmations and contract revocations, because the healing is now and it can be in every moment. It can be absolutely incorporated into your lifestyle. Healing our damaged DNA is actually healing thousands of years of imbalance that has turned into health issues and conditions. If we can create balance and harmony and understand our inner self, the elements we are made of, and the ether, which purifies, we absolutely can heal even damaged DNA. So notice if you start to slip into these low frequencies of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire that are calibrating at low like energies, like 20, 30, 50, 75. Well, look at the energy of peace, joy, love, reason. Those vibrations are high. So, you know, we can just flip the switch at any time and raise our vibration in the face of something that might feel like it's, you know, really gonna really compromise us, or where we're just not in self-love or forgiveness. You know, it creates constriction. And that's very much what Saturn, dark Saturn wants. It wants suffering. You know, it wants that loosh. It wants all that extra energy that we're not tapping into. It wants all that for itself. So we need to just expand fully. We're restoring the Tree of Life template. And I'll just put it on the screen. You guys can check it out. You can see how the Tree of Life template is 12 spheres. It breaks up into different harmonic universes. And finally, the physical being is becoming aware that they are the consciousness tool that can open stargates and thereby direct this consciousness power. It is all internally accessed. Being self-aware and consciously creative is the challenge. And the greatest disclosure I am seeing is that our connection to this earth, mother spirit, and unity consciousness and sacred union is the great DNA activator and the liberator of all. So, and it's right there. We have everything we could possibly need right here. And we just got to be patient with ourselves. The Venus transits have been turning it up, right? The goddess path is our divine feminine inheritance. Getting in touch with this energy within helps us to anchor this energy in the physical plane. If you see Venus alignment with Earth over 8 years has formed this pentagram, and it's created the corrections, helping the ether to come back in. And as of 2010, that was successful, and it did come back in, and it's here, and it's going to work its magic. The Grail has been identified with alchemy, the science of concentrating vital currents in life forces. In the time of the Catholic Inquisition, alchemists were careful to veil their art. They said it was to turn base metals into gold. In philosophical and metaphysical terms, the alchemists were more concerned with the transformation of the worldly person, lead, into a spiritually illuminated person, which is gold. Just as gold was tried and tested in the fire, so the human spirit was tried in the crucible of life. And the agent for this illumination was perceived to be the Holy Spirit. So all our life challenges and adversities are pushing us towards an alchemical shift. And this is the time. So anyway, that was something from Peter Farley. He wrote this book called Before the Tree of Life. And I just love that quote because that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then this is one of my favorites. It is Sophia's return into matter through Mother Ark that sees the truth of the recorded hidden histories and the abusive technologies located in the planetary, solar, galactic, and universal logos. This is why the Archons inherently hate Sophia, as she can perceive what they cannot, as it is in this activated superpower that she will defeat them. So remember, this goes way beyond just the election, way beyond anything. This is something that we all have access to, and it's stronger than all these negative forces. We are going to defeat these Archons. And then we get the full picture. Look at that tree of life. It shows the 13 spheres. You got the crystal earth vibrating as the crystal earth. That is where we're heading. All these different levels of ourselves in our star system and star seed origins, galactic family, the full picture. You got the Alpha Mother Galaxy, the Omega Father Galaxy, and the Omni Galactic Source, the galactic core, and how that is healing our planet, moving us in the right direction. And right now we're just seeing all the dark characters have their last hurrah, their last attempt to steal power, steal the election, steal our souls or our DNA, and compromise us. And it's just not going to happen. So thank you, everybody. I know that we have questions, but I was going to just end with a quick card reading to see where we are on the timeline. And but I'll stop share. And I'm glad that you have it to play back because I'm not always reading as well as I could. And so because there's just a feed, even though it's Q&A, I'm just going to do a quick card reading. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Sophia energy is definitely connected to the Bible's Holy Spirit for sure. Do you think that certain individuals can be targeted by off-planet malevolent entities or organizations having been identified through social media? Yeah. Having been identified. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of why they wanted these platforms and social media. I mean, they kind of sold us out. And so the AI and surveillance stuff is very connected to social media. And there's a lot of threats about, the testing for COVID and them getting something from us in order to target certain groups that are undesirable, that are getting in the way of their New World Order plans. But you know what? With everything that is going on, that we know is going on with the planetary shift, mother energy, and just the way the planetary energies are so different than they used to be, I just don't think it's possible. So I work energy a lot with cards, and they've mostly been pretty darn positive. And this one is just not really saying a whole lot, this particular reading, but it's not saying anything negative either. There's nothing wrong with being off planet, but they wanted to drag me off planet, and I wasn't really able to interface with the people that were involved. So I'm not just going to take my kids and go to another planet, especially when I have a mission here on Earth. So that was the biggest deal, is just, I don't want to go to Mars. I want to stay here on Earth. I am a part of the mother energy, anchoring. I've known that since I was a child. I've always been connected with it. And deep down we all are, but it's always been a part of my conscious awareness. So how could I possibly not be on the planet? They wanted me to go off the planet so I wouldn't be able to do this. Is a great way to, kind of like have their New World Order agendas to take certain people off planet. They probably would have taken many more than just myself. But yeah, eventually we want to go off planet. We're going to be like moving through Stargates. We're going to be traveling, through these gateways, through consciousness and through, just our Merkaba body and, us moving into the higher technology that relates also to certain types of craft that are very specific to the person that's piloting it as far as their DNA is concerned. So yeah, it just seemed like it had been an infiltrated thing. It didn't seem like a good idea to go. And it definitely got confirmed that that was a good thing that I didn't do it. So that's all right. I would love to hear your take on Ike and what happened with Majestic 12. Well, the wrong individuals got in there, and this is the hard part of it all, is that, Project Paperclip and some of these others that are connected to the Dark Cabal and the Illuminati. I mean, this wasn't just like information that one could easily gain access to. Now, I mean, all of it's been disclosed. So, I mean, he was, definitely like fooled and then he got a clue. And I don't know what's happening with MJ-12 now, but, this is between the Truman and Eisenhower administration. Truman's administration had the 3-letter organizations and the beginnings of MJ-12. And then when Eisenhower came in, he inherited like the most unbelievable issues. I just can't imagine, what he had to go through. I mean, going from being general to the war to being pushed into the presidency. He didn't really want to become president, but like, they wanted to really, kind of use him and scapegoat him because they knew he was a well-intentioned leader. But yeah, I've heard about the Lincoln Park thing and stuff like that. But yeah, I think, the members of the MJ-12 group actually changed pretty drastically. And yeah, Eisenhower definitely made some mistakes, but, look at us where we are now. People are making mistakes all over the place because of the level of disinfo and all these hidden tactics with dark technologies to steer us off course. Lying and manipulation. It's really hard when you're a well-intentioned person and you're around a bunch of liars and thieves. It's a really, really difficult thing to wake up to. And I know we've all had something like that happen in our life. It just, with him, it obviously ended up happening on a much larger scale. But they did put a plan in place, and that plan's connected to the White Hats and potentially some of the Q stuff. But I don't really get much into the Q stuff anyway. But and it's just been so targeted and probably infiltrated. So what is your perspective on the following? Ones, we are no longer traded as commodity on the stock market. Or will the trade of humans as commodity with the dark cosmic interests? Yeah, it's got to stop. I mean, I think that's what we're going to be, dealing with. I mean, there's multiple levels of stuff that needs to be cleared and exposed and redeemed. But we all have to play our part as best as we can. And we all have different, kind of callings. Another thing with the Cosmic Gaia group is I can't do as many one-on-one sessions, but in some of the calls, if you want me to check your chart or answer like, any questions, I can do that about, your chart or give you a card reading, give you some clarity about, path and purpose. And sometimes I'll be able to do like a one-on-one call if there's a big urgency, for sure. Like I like to just stay in touch and like just really help everybody as best as I can. What is a good approach in preparing body to raise vibrations, be able to connect with our cosmic brothers? Definitely like detoxing, good nutrition. The zeolites are helpful. All these great products I have on my site, cosmicgaia.org under products. I recommend checking all those things out. I mean, the only reason I'm bothering with distributing them is because I believe in them and they've worked for me, or else I wouldn't bother. So I would just focus in on just calmness, breath, sound healing music, just really, really just taking really, really good care of yourself, particularly on the nutritional end of it all. Connect with nature. This is all about like nature. I mean, if the core sun of this planet is what it is, when we ground with nature, even walking around barefoot or sitting against a tree, we're going to get those transmissions, especially like between the earth and the sun. That's going to give us what we need. So we could just bask in nature and put the sun on our faces and good nutrition and, and positive thoughts. We're creative. It doesn't mean like blind positive thoughts, like everything's going to be okay. It's the positivity connected to staying inspired, staying connected with your passions and directing your creative energy and intent into building something that matters, that can make a difference in the world, and a lot of people are having a hard time because they are stuck in a 3D job. And that's also part of what my subscription is about, helping people to transition out of whatever it is that isn't working for them anymore, to really help them stand in their mission and take a few risks to make, those life choices and changes that, can change everything for the better. So you want to be very careful of sticking with things that you don't agree with, compromising yourself in jobs or relationships. Believe in yourself. I've lost so much, lost so many jobs, not so much through getting fired, but I've moved 40, 50 times all over the earth or all over the country, living out of vehicles for a good 10 years plus, raising kids out of vehicles for part of it. Because I just my guidance was telling me, and I was able to, bring out my mission and do the work that I do. But it didn't mean it was always comfortable or easy. But now there's more community. We all have each other. We can all help each other. And I like to, and if somebody's like having a really difficult time, I can help raise funds and help people just to transition out of this madness and this terrible matrix. So, okay. Project Looking Glass. Yeah, it's a quantum access technology. They used it to find me and a person in a past life in order to manipulate us and use that technology as a way to control, but it didn't really work. They're able to just view timelines and probabilities and sort of steer the narrative based in what they're seeing in order to kind of hijack our ability to get to a desirable outcome because they can kind of look ahead. And so a lot of the psychological operations, I believe, are based in what they were able to view through the looking glass. But from what I've come to understand is they weren't able to see anything past 2012. And so that really just hits the point home that our creative energies are everything. What we choose to believe, what frequency we choose to attach ourselves to, makes all the difference. But we want to go beyond belief. We want to go into knowingness. We want to go into truth. We need to first really connect with our own truth frequency so that we can have better discernment. Do those celebrities know about what they are used for and what exactly does it mean to sell their soul to the devil? I think some definitely do know. They're offered a deal and they make a deal. They create a contract. Maybe they didn't read the contract very carefully. And I've noticed a lot of them get darker and darker over time, more compromised. There is a lot of blackmail. Like you go to these, billionaire parties and they might, drug you and take a photograph of you in a compromising position and then kind of own you through that. Some might not fully know if they don't realize their alters. I mean, it's obvious that Nicole Kidman, her father, Anthony Kidman, was involved with satanic ritual abuse and pedophilia. And she was very close to her father. And so, there isn't this sort of there's a big difference between somebody who hasn't awoken, that has got many alters, and somebody who has. They're very different. They want to do something. They want to heal. They want to call it out. So, I mean, there's just a lot that might not fully know. Those memories might be blocked. They are masterful. Well, not masterful. I don't like using that word for them, but they have ways to wipe memories. They have ways to keep you in certain altars and switch those altars when they want to switch those altars. So when you're in a certain altar, you're not really aware of all the other ones unless you really begin the waking up process. And I think there's quite a bit of celebrities that are the monarch programmed ones. There are some that are just participating in rituals. There are some that compromise themselves, sold their soul to a certain degree. You can't really sell your soul. You can always get your soul back, but made some sort of agreement or deal for wealth and fame and money and influence at the cost of, something or keeping quiet about the horrific crimes that are going on behind the scenes. There's something going on there where, there's an agreement somehow to be complicit. There should be a lot more whistleblowers coming out of Hollywood. And that's a really disappointing thing. And I'm sure lives are threatened. Once they own you, they kind of own you. It's like a cult. I mean, it's a Hollywood cult, really. And there's a lot of really dark stuff going on there. So altars, yeah. So when I talked about the 200 altars, these are fragments. These are split personalities. So trauma-based mind control creates altars. So when, the movie Sybil, right? She had, all these different personalities. Well, this is what they do in order to create trained assassins, sex slaves, and celebrities and famous sports heroes and people that are in the political realm. This is how they can use a person and engineer a persona in order to play a particular role. And some of them have 200 and more altars. They have altars that do operations in secret space programs. Some of them are my lab victims. Some of them go off planet on a regular basis. Some, also there's the 20 and back. And those individuals, I believe, definitely have altars. And the 20 and back, has to do with age regression technology and going off and serving off planet for like 17 years, 20 years, and then being brought back into your body like only a couple minutes have passed, and you regress back into your body. I would look at some of the interviews with Tony Rodriguez. I think he's one of the best ones to kind of explain, because he went through all that. So do you believe that it's 51% of the population needs to be awake, or do you believe it's a smaller number? How close do you think we are to that? Is this something that Trump and his cabinet are aware of? I don't know if they're aware of that. But I mean, it makes sense that, it needs to be more than half of the population to knock it over into the next thing. But also, I mean, sometimes I wonder, the timetable on it. When are we too late to wake up? When is it too late? Is it ever too late? I don't think so. I mean, I believe in the unconditional love of source, and that we'll never really be fully like cut off. We might experience the absolute separation worse than we've been experiencing, for so long, with a lot of distorted religions. People haven't really been able to truly connect to the God source within themselves very easily. And that's a certain level of separation. But the next level, has a lot to do with the degradation of the human vessel, and the compromising of our DNA. So, I mean, what's available in order to heal and regenerate and connect with the frequencies that can help advance us and upgrade our DNA is here. So, but there is going to be a certain stage in the game where either bifurcation happens, and we're not just like sharing, the energies and like witnessing, the potential end New World Order timeline, and they won't be able to perceive of the Ascension timeline anymore, and there'll be a split. And I don't know if like that number pushes it into like time to make that split, or probably that number creates the mass global awakening where everybody experiences the benefits, right? And if not, then I see a bifurcation. If it's under 51%, I see that those still remain on the positive timeline, but they're going to split off. But if we are over 51%, it's going to be a whole planetary experience and a global awakening. And I'm just shooting for that and hoping for that. But that's just kind of what I think. I don't know. How will President Trump be able to expose these high profile people now? Crimes against humanity should have been brought up during. Yeah, I know. It seems like there's no way to broadcast Pizzagate. People may need this in order to believe what is really going on. Yeah, I mean, this is a really trying time, because, he's losing his position of power. Everything's going to have to like go to the courts. Justice is going to have to take place, and it's going to be, there's going to have to be a lot of people like really standing up and supporting this process. Because I mean, I don't know why more arrests didn't happen. They're saying that arrests are going to happen in the next 10 days. I'm sort of tired of hearing that, personally. And I'm not, sometimes I'm not even fully certain, like, I mean, what's going on, like what's compromising their ability to make more arrests happen. But I feel very encouraged knowing Trump's astro chart. It's really, really powerful. It's not really showing an energy of defeat at all. This goes so much beyond the election. So, regardless of what happens, we are all a team, working for the same kind of common goal. And we'll just have to kind of see how it goes. But it's hard to hear information and then see nothing happen for so long. So I am someone who arrests negative aliens for rehabilitation on behalf of benevolent galactics. And I even see negative alien attachments on some of our spiritual leaders sometimes. What do you recommend for those who are ascending to empower themselves from such an extreme level of mind control and negative interference? So what do you recommend for those who are ascending to empower themselves? Okay, like if they want to ascend, but they have this extreme level of mind control and negative interference, they're going to have to go through whatever it takes. They're going to have to support their physical vessel. They're going to have to do whatever they can to hold space for themselves to notice the foreign entities. The more clear you get with yourself, the more you realize what doesn't belong and what isn't yours. So, I mean, I feel like a lot of these people in positions of leadership needed to do that before they became public, because they aren't well equipped to lead anybody when they're so heavily compromised. I've seen it too. I try and just kind of keep my distance a little bit, but like, there's only so much you can say. It has to be something that a person kind of arrives at. But, you can definitely drop clues And if you're close enough and you're a good enough friend, you know, you can say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. It's a hard one to dance around sometimes. But it's like, I see people, you know, saying it to these individuals anyway. And I give my 2 cents as much as I can, but it's really going to be up to them. As far as those that want to ascend and move on and feel very hooked into trying to save people and help people and wake them up, you know, there's going to be a point where it's just going to be really, really hard. It's like, because it's keeping us from being able to move on. So, and that's the hardest one, I think. It's like, you know, we just got to know that they're not completely abandoned or left in the dust, but like, you know, it's getting really, really dangerous to be hanging this close to all this kind of stuff. I don't know if that made any sense, but I hope I answered your question. How do we avoid New World Order vaccines? Well, I mean, I got my way, and I would just exit the Earth plane before they would shoot me with anything by force. And I know that's probably not the kind of answer that sounds appropriate, but I'm just being honest as far as myself. I would just take myself out. I'm not going to be assimilated into AI. I'm not going to, there's no way, but I don't see that happening. I really don't see that happening. And yeah, just the way to avoid it, I don't know, just kick some ass. I don't know. It's pretty scary. It's just really disappointing that the people that voted for Biden and support all that just did not get a clue, even after the laptop, with all the warnings and all the work that people have been doing to put out this stuff. I'm just really, really surprised. But at the same time, there's, you know, if we saw the true election results, we'd realize that, you know, the numbers are really small for Biden. But the indoctrination in the colleges and universities is really scary, because they literally have engineered people to support this agenda. I mean, music is incredible, you know, when it's tuned to the right frequency, of course. Yes. I mean, it's one of the greatest medicines. It's one of my favorite things. Music, it just, if anything can shift energy, it's the right kind of music. So I know I would give you a longer answer, but I just want to make sure I can answer as many as possible. You've heard that the Cabal have set up these so-called black cube sites in major cities that harvest energy from citizens. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, no, true. It's similar to what, you know, the whole Saturn thing. So there's hubs, just like there's ascending hubs. There's things on the Earth, like in the planetary, like Earth body, Earth grids that connect to things that are off planet. There's a direct link, and it kind of like the harvesting tanks, and then those tanks get taken elsewhere to feed the dark ones. And they would have to. That's kind of how it works. That they have harvesting stations located all over the Earth, actually, from what I've heard. I haven't been able to talk to President Trump, so I did my best, and maybe once things settle a little bit more, I'll be able to. Okay, maybe get a hold of me, Annabelle, about that. Some of these names. So I'm going on 82, and all this doesn't sound like a good future for my last years here. I'm a spiritual being and pick up energy very easily, so my goal is 5D. Do I have the time for all this that is going to be going down? It seems like it'll be a long time before things settle down. Well, you got to just know that you have this for yourself. Don't worry about where the planet is and where humanity is. You're not dependent on them to be where you want to be. You might not witness what you might want to witness here on this earth, but as long as you have it within your heart and you've attained it, nobody can take that away from you. I don't feel like we're at the mercy of other people being asleep, but we still have a strong contract and agreement to assist these souls. So that can, you know, make it tough, but just hold faith and, you know, just work on you, pay attention to you. And, we might see a really drastic thing happen, you know. I mean, we're moving through the alchemical time of the year. We've only been experiencing that for the last 10 years. And people haven't really fully understood it or maybe put the attention on it that it deserves, you know, to meditate and to integrate those energies of the ether. Because once we get the mitochondrial energy or DNA healed, we really begin to switch on dormant abilities. And when we switch on dormant abilities, you know, we are that override frequency. That's why I named the talk Override Frequency. These are the times that we're in. But yeah, the cleanup job And to clear out everything that needs to go, it is a long and drawn out process, but you're where you need to be, and that's important. So reverse DNA is just where we don't have the ether element available, which is the energy from the mother, to like help us to, you know, thrive and you know, combat aging and even the death cycle. You know, when we become aware of our multidimensional energy and we switch on dormant DNA, we break that cycle and we live for a lot longer. We're able to come and go from the physical as we please. The reversal is like digression, death, aging. And I don't want to like put like a negative spin on aging and death. There's great initiations connected to it. It's also a beautiful thing because we never really die. It doesn't have to be looked at, you know, dark. We keep recycling into the system to learn lessons, to grow, to learn how to use our power correctly. We don't have to feel like victims here. You know, there's certain things that we need to understand and achieve within ourselves to be able to move on. And so the very thing that's trying to stop us can be the very thing that teaches us and catalyzes us into the Great Awakening. You know, we are not like victims, but we kind of are to a certain degree, but not really. I mean, it's just not a good vibration to hold because this is a free will universe and we are rebuilding the architecture of our DNA and we're understanding how to conduct ourselves in the world. And, you know, the amnesia is the hardest part, but as part of the journey, we go through all these different life experiences to help snap us out of the trance, to help wake us up, to help us deprogram, to help us find our truth. Life gives us everything that we need. We have to just honor our experiences a little bit more and trust it. But yeah, the reversal is kept alive through the dark technologies and through the weaponization of media and entertainment. It just keeps us kind of in a digression where we're just in our lower selves, you know, looking at the world of appearances and just only focus on the superficial, the gossip, the drama, you know, the division, the hatred, you know, the superiority complexes, you know, just all these like personality things. So once we break through the personality matrix and we go through that dark night of the soul that I was showing in that one picture, we move through the death cycle, which is what we're in right now as a collective. We begin to emerge and we begin to transform. They keep wanting us to be defeated and circle back around. And then we're caught in that feedback loop. And that's the 3D prison like that we're trying to get out of. And this is the time that we're going to get out of it. And I truly believe we will. We just all got to stick together. We got to have each other's back. We got to, you know, just do our best, be good to ourselves, be gentle with ourselves, love ourselves, forgive each other, you know, all that good spiritual stuff. Are we not ourselves able to deprogram their manipulation of these places? I believe when we deprogram ourselves, we deprogram and clear energies that are all over the world. We're connected to the whole planet. I mean, so all that we do within ourselves has a direct impact on everything outside of us. It influences the collective consciousness. We can deprogram ourselves, absolutely. You know, the more time we spend with ourselves, the more we understand that disease can bring us closer to ourselves by understanding what the symptoms are trying to tell us. What are they rooted in? What kind of trauma? What kind of story does it tell? You know, what maybe is the locked potential that is stuck in your body that is turning into pain. Maybe it's something that you always wish you had done or you wanted to pursue, but you never did. And all of a sudden, like you're in pain or something's wrong with your physical body. Well, feeling into what the root of all that is can answer the questions to create healing, but also create a life path change where you can literally get your life back. So we got to bless these adversities because they literally are pointing us in the right direction. But the medical industry takes advantage of it. You know, psychologists and, you know, people that prescribe pharmaceuticals, they've all taken advantage of these great initiations. And they've pulled us further away from spirit body communication and taken us further and further into their trap and into their web of dependency. So we got to just like work with it a bit. And that's why I love medical astrology, because it's like, oh, okay, you know. And when I was young, I refused to go to doctors. If there was something wrong with me, I would just go into it. Like, okay, what is the source of this? Where is this coming from? I learned how to heal myself. But, you know, then there's some times where I, like later in life, it didn't go so easy. When I was going through a terrible breakup, I ended up having to go to the hospital. But anyway, it was just too much. Could you please explain if the progressed lunar cycles are reflection of the Saturn-Moon matrix? I mean, it depends like who you are and where you're at. So I'm not there's always going to be, you know, a reflection of that. I mean, we're seeing the lowest sort of common denominator. We're seeing the lowest level of how people are experiencing this timeline. And then we're seeing people that are beyond that programming and have been for a really, really long time. So it depends on the individual. On a collective level, with all the shutdown, with everything, I mean, it's like, it's worse. It's beyond that. It's like the whole caboodle of, you know, the manipulation of the Earth grids, the planetary grid system. Even though a lot of those grids have been healed, they're really counting on us to almost like reignite these reversal energies and these negative grid energies through our fear. And that's why they're really pushing this, you know, and in the hopes that they can recapture some of the grid network and throw it back into, like, you know, darkness, because we're absolutely connected to it. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but ooh, it looks like our time is up. But if you guys want to stay in touch, you know, sign up for my newsletter with the free one on my website, cosmicgaia.org. And then for $15 a month, you know, a bunch of Zoom events each month, and you know, other things come along with it, newsletters, things about you know, astro check-ins, you know, like a weekly astro report. I'm trying to do readings for people. I can't guarantee the timeliness of it all, but I do have referrals on my website that have discounts connected to the subscription. So if I can't do it, I've got other people lined up that have the same prices, and there's coupon codes. But I got a lot of projects I have to focus on. So I just want to, you know, just meet with a lot of people at one time. And I can do a card reading if you raise your hand at one of these events, and I can do a card reading for you. Sometimes I'm going to have a guest host like I did last night, but a lot of times it'll just be me with a Q&A doing, you know, one-on-one readings, and just, you know, if you feel transparent enough to do it around, you know, some other people. And then there's business opportunities with some of the products. So if you feel like you could use some financial support and maybe work from home, there's some good ideas there. But I better let you guys go. I know it's been a long thing. Thank you so much for like hanging with me for the last couple of hours and listening to everything. I really, really appreciate it. And like, oh my gosh, like hopefully I can get some sleep tonight, because I haven't been really able to sleep. But you guys will have a replay. You can replay at any time. You can take your time with it. I know I talk kind of fast, and you'll have like the script that you can read and just really, really take all this in, because it is really good news. I hope you guys feel the positive message, but we have to deconstruct the stuff that doesn't serve us in order to really, really benefit from what's beneficial and what's available and what's here. And it's divine, and it's glorious, and it's beautiful. And we're going to be okay. I know that. We're going to be beyond okay. We're going to thrive, and we're going to really experience our birthright and the magic and miracles that we are made to create. So thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if Neil's still here, but I'm going to say goodbye, and you know where to find me, and we'll definitely stay in touch, and I'll stick close to everybody as best as I can. I'm always here, and I love you guys. Thank you so much, Neil.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Laura. I was on mute, so you probably didn't hear me. I said, thank you, Laura. Love you. Hope you all had a great time. Looks like you did. Again, you do get unlimited replay access. If this is your first time attending a Portal to Ascension event, just to let you know, again, we do 100+ events a year. This is our third one this year with Laura Eisenhower. We do live online conferences. We have, I would say at this point, 50 to 60,000 unique individuals every single year joining one of our events on some level. So you get unlimited replay access. I'm going to go ahead and show you, whoever wants to stick around for 5 minutes, I'm going to show you how you're going to view your replay and the website and a couple other events that we have coming up. So I'm going to share screen with you right now. What is that apparatus behind me? Oh, that's my microphone. I'm actually a rapper, spoken word artist. So actually, after I'm done with this, maybe I'll close out with a little poem for you guys. Okay, here we go. So here again, here's the website that you all signed up on. If you had any issues today logging in or getting on the website or having error establishing database connection, I deeply apologize. Our site is growing so big. We're having so many people come in from different events that our server can't hold the traffic that we're getting now. So within the next 2 months, our entire site's going to look so different than what it is. It's going to be upgraded 1,000-fold. The back end of the website is going to look very similar to Netflix. And I'll show you what it looks like right now. You have all the same features plus a lot more. And we're starting to launch documentaries next month on our platform, where we're going to have thousands of hours of documentaries being added every single year, creating a huge, robust platform for you of a lot of content, not only the content that you paid for, like this event that you can watch the replay for, but also a bunch of free stuff. So on our website, you can go to the online events section to kind of take a look at different events we have going on. I do have all the events scheduled from now up until almost mid next year. And you can see, you're just a part of this event right here. We have Unsolved Mysteries of South America coming up next week, followed by Preventing Amnesia in the Reincarnation Process towards the end of this month. And then Alan Steinfeld Advanced Remote Viewing. So it's the second in the series. We also have that this month alone. That goes into next month, where we have Sonic Geometry. This is going to be about sound, frequency, and sacred geometry. And this one I'm really looking forward to. Tricia McCannon, Quest for the Holy Grail and the Grail Stone, which is about the truth of the Knights Templar and the bloodlines of Europe. And then these two events here are what I'm going to show you the pages for. Our next free event coming up is the Psychedelic Awareness and Plant Medicine Online Conference. So if you are interested, you can go to our website, go to online events, take a look at the Psychedelic Awareness and Plant Medicine Online Conference. And again, just to remind you guys, I'm going to show you in a minute how you're going to view your replay as well. So if you want to stick around, take a look at that, please do. So this event right here is coming up on December 13th. It is a free event. You can donate if you want to attend. And we're going to go over indigenous wisdom of psychedelics and plant medicine, and also DNA and, scientific studies that are now coming out, as well as testimonials on people that have had miraculous healing from plant medicine. So this event is on our website under online events. Feel free to join this if you'd like to attend. Again, you have unlimited replay access. We're going to have a total of 7 presenters, and it's going to be for 8 full hours. Okay. And then I had a few of you guys ask earlier to explain the Sacred Sites and Ceremonies online conference, because some of you actually signed up and you clicked the little button to add to your cart the Sacred Sites when you checked out. This is the event you signed up for, and it's going to be on December 12th, 2020. This one's for $77 all day, unlimited replays. We're going to have around 12 speakers all together. And the whole purpose of this is sacred sites and ceremonies. So we're going to have 6 presenters that are representing different sacred sites. We got ancient Egypt represented. We got Damanhur. People from Damanhur are going to be represented there. We got the White Lions in South Africa. We have India represented. We have the Mayan Peninsula. So we're going to have six presentations, and also we're going to have 6 indigenous ceremonies from different people all over the world that are going to tune in through Zoom and be doing the ceremony. So it's going to be presentation, ceremony all day on 12/12. And again, you have unlimited replay access for that. So if you want to attend that, awesome. The other one that you guys, some of you signed up for, is the Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure conference that we're going to be doing, the 2nd annual. And that's going to be with Laura Eisenhower, Michael Sala, John D'Souza, and myself. So I'm going to be presenting as well. So some of you signed up for that. That's on January 3rd. Again, all of you can just go to online events and browse there and take a look at different ones. We have some free ones coming up, some paid ones, and everything in between. Okay, now this is how you are going to access the replay for this event. Every single one of you should have received an email with a temporary password, and your username is your email address. So all you do is, let's start from the beginning here. You click on, where you're going to click on the link to go and view the webinar, or your members dashboard, or log in on our website. This will take you to this page, soon to be changed and upgraded. You're going to click log in. Once you're logged in, you will see this. You can search by typing here, search by letter, by speaker, by topic, by whatever you want to search, and it will show up if we have something with that letter or that word. If you want to browse everything, including all your free footage, you could just scroll down yourself. And you can see how much footage we have here. It goes on for a long time. If you want to search by category, all the categories are right here. Okay. If you want to search by speaker, Adam Apollo, Alan Steinfeld, Barbara Lamb, Billy Carson, Brad Johnson, Ryan Forrester, Bruce Lipton, Dan Winter, Dolores Cannon. You can keep scrolling, go there. There's this right here. I have access to everything because I created all this, right? So, but everybody that is joining right now, you have access to at least 2,000 hours of free presentations right now for you available here. And you also have documentaries, another 100 or so hours of documentaries for you, interviews, many, many interviews with some amazing presenters. And then a couple of cool features. One, you can actually add to your watch list. So if you want to just add things to your library and add it to your watch list, you can do so here. And then you can go to watch list, and then they will all be there for you. So you can look back later. And then another thing is when you're watching the webinar, if you stop at like 1 hour and 2 minutes, when you close out and log back in, it will start off from where you logged out, where you stopped. So you can continue watching from where you stopped. So we got all these cool features. If you have any feedback on how we can improve this platform, again, we're going to be relaunching our website in about a month from now on December 15th. Give us feedback then. But if you have any suggestions at any point, things that we can make the user interface more friendly for you, please let us know. So you can see here, here's the webinar, the info, speakers, and then suggested webinars that you can watch as well. So that is how you're going to view everything on the back end. If you do have any issues, if you don't get an email, check your spam. Please email us. Let us know. We're working out some kinks right now. We're having issues with emails being delivered. So we're really I'm really focusing a lot of energy on upgrading our platform, solidifying our security on an unprecedented level, and becoming this really robust streaming platform. We are going to be launching an Android app and an iPhone app in January, and you're going to be able to cast right from your phone to your TV. So we're taking this to the next level. I really hope all of you guys enjoy and utilize the platform for what it's designed to be. And if you do have any feedback, let me know at any point. All right, so that's it for that. Okay, so again, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to end the day with a little poem for you, a spoken word piece, and then we'll close out. The road goes on for generations. The travelers would disperse their light amongst all the willingly incarnated souls. But what if the ones that didn't know? Amnesia of their internal endowment to reserve a place in the fifth dimension for themselves, the ego to control a better life they shall never know. I welcome you, dark one, to the lap of luxury, followed by pain and woes. We all sold our souls to the devil, but the devil exists not. Negative energy we dub as evil creates the demons of whom we are fearful. Take the D from the demon, put it in front of the word evil, and now you have a personified devil. Our thoughts and experiences create this creature only exists in the mind. Our desires and wants creates a full-featured ego that keeps our lower selves from reaching the divine intellect. Love and a perfect understanding we will have with one another. I welcome you, my brother, my sister, my lover, to become one, to help me become one, before reality tears me from duality and back into ether's imagination. You see? I'm the ghost of lives past. Generations have descended to gain these experiences, and I pray the human situation is critical, mind analytical, won't let me forget the fall of angels and demons into the third dimensional world. Is this planet yours? May I hide amongst the lost souls? Hide out for a bit, drink some liquor, smoke some weed, and step outside for a cigarette? Yeah, sure, man. Here's a social security card. You may live. Reincarnated to a kid to live and give back to the society. And I'm locked in borders. I smolder, but through the ashes comes a horde of abstract thought. Who is not a ghost of spirit, but just is. An enlightened individual. Equality minus Alito's political goal, the cynical flow to pain and woes and shamanistic pagan rituals. We will resurrect the Messiah in all of us. It's time to trust our brothers and sisters. Unity of mind, consciousness, awareness on the rise. The yin-yang intertwined, masculine, feminine lovers intertwined. Spit words from the chakra points in my spine. Relentless, but I still find inner peace helps down the pace of my corrupted mind. Chemtrails, aspartame, fluoride kept my awareness fried. Getting drunk and high to block the constant question of why are we really here? But now I know is to help humanity steer into the right direction. For every single one of you, I feel affection. We're in the same situation. So erase the awkward moments, trying to walk around and get that bonus. Remember, the Arcturians will be one of the group of interdimensional beings in the near future through mass landings will help our souls really breathe. So raise your frequency if this is what you want to see. And don't try to break free from the shackles of captivity that we formed in our own mentality, because you and I, we are and we've always been free. Love you all so much. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Check us out, portaltoascension.org. I'll send you the replay tomorrow. Have a beautiful evening, everybody. Bye.